Okay, welcome to this texturing and UV layout part of this course. For those of you that have bought the Polygon modelling course, thank you very much. That money will help to pay for the hosting and domain costs of 3djunkie.net. So thank you very much for that. So this is a follow-on course from that. Those that haven't bought the course and that just want to do this, find out about UV layouts and rendering, I welcome you. Donations are always welcome. You can find that on the site. But this is where we left off with the Polygon modelling course. We just basically, at the end of it, we did a turntable of the bike that we created. So what we need to do first of all is get rid of that rotation. So we'll do that quickly. We can go down to Outliner and basically grab those who did the Polygon modelling course, this will be related to them. We can just grab these three that are parented to the locator. So the spotlight, the directional light, 2, 3 and the render camera. We're just going to middle mouse button and just drag them out. And this will then not locate to the locator, which is actually animated. If we check down here, we can see that there's keyframes set for those. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that locator out because we no longer need it. We can create another one at the end, but just to make it a bit easier, we're just going to delete that out. I'm also going to delete the sphere out that we've got here. This was our background sphere that we used. We'll create another one later when the bike is rendered. What else do we need to do? Well, we got the lights and everything else, that's good. We do need to take our spotlight, which is right up here. Now to zoom in and out, I'm just pressing the Alt key and then I'm pressing the left mouse button and I'm just pulling in and out. You press the left mouse button to rotate around and the middle mouse button just to move about. So that's just the shortcuts from that. Those who have done the Polygons course already know this. So we've got this bike and what we have is our spotlight up here, which has got shadows. Now what I'm trying to do here is optimize the render time of this. At the moment, if I render out, which I'll do now, you can see here's the render. It's far too big for one, because I did it for a final render, and the other side of it is that it's taking quite a long time to render out. So I think that's about 2 minutes or something. So I want to cut down my render time because I'm going to be applying materials that's only going to add render time to it. So that's why I'm going to select this spotlight up here. I'm going to go down to my shadows and I'm going to not turn off the ray shadows, but I'm going to bring the shadow rays, the ray depth limit and the light radius down to 0. I'm also going to come into the render settings here and come to the quality setting, and I'm actually just going to set it to draft. Okay, and while I'm in here, I'm going to switch across to the common and I'm going to reduce the size. Well, I've got 1920 by 1032, which is the video size. So I'm going to set that to, I did have it at 1920 by 720 for HD, but because my sizes are different when I'm videoing on screen, I set it to 1032. So I'm going to bring this down to maybe 600 width by sort of 300. That's fairly small, actually. It's a bit out there, so maybe I'll set this to 400. That should be a bit better. And now the render speed of it should be significantly faster. Let's put that in frame, roughly there, and do another render of that. Yeah, so as you can see, it took 7 seconds, so much better, but the quality's gone. But it doesn't really matter at this stage. We're just rendering, we want to see how our materials basically look. So that's the reason that I've set all that up there. Anything else I need to set up to optimize the scene? Not really. I've got this kind of grey this light grey background, which is fine. Which is to get that background, make sure that you select your render camera. And in the settings down here, if that's not available to you, if it looks something like this, then you just need to hit that tab there and come down to our environment, and you can change the colour here. You can just pick a colour or you can just select a colour, and then you can increase or decrease the value of that with this slider. Okay, so I've set it to a light grey, that way my materials will show up nicely on it. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is look at this and say, right, okay, well what do I need to do? Well, there's going to be a few things that we do in this course. One of them is going to be projecting a logo onto the frame. We're going to be taking the tyres and we're going to be setting up a texture map for them, and also putting a bump map on them, and obviously the texture file. And then a lot of the materials are going to just be the basic material, the basic mental ray materials that are going to be applied just directly to them. I might add a few special effects, especially with the saddle, which I'm going to add a fractal to, or the leather texture look directly using Maya's built-in functions. So that's all cool. So the other thing you must make sure is that on your render settings you're rendering using mental ray. If this tab isn't available to you, it probably means that you need to go into Windows settings and down to plugins, settings preferences, down to plugin manager. Open that up and just make sure that you've got the Maya atom, which is there, Maya to MR, Maya to mental ray .ml, and make sure those are checked. Once you've checked those, then you'll, in the render settings tab, you will have that option available to you. Okay, I mean, you could render out using Maya software, but then the mental ray materials won't render, and we're using mental ray materials for this, and we're rendering through mental ray. So with that said and done, we can start to look at what we need to do. Now, like I said to you, we're going to be using two different methods here. One is going to be projecting the logo or the images onto things, and the other one is going to be actually creating a texture map. So when we're creating the texture map, unlike when we're projecting, we have to lay out the UVs, and it's good policy to lay out the UVs, especially for this training course, because it will give you more practice. So if you want to try laying out all of these on your own once you've learned the techniques, that's really good. Also, like things like the gears down here, which we're just going to apply a material to. If you want to actually UV lay these out, then you can add things like sort of oil and oil effects and things around here, which will look really good. So that's all of that. So let's start off by getting a bit of colour into this thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is come down to my rendering, and I'm going to come into my hypershade. Now I'd like to point out before I carry on that I'm showing you how to do this all in Maya, but there are other programs that you can use to create these effects quicker. Like, say for instance, the saddle area, that actually the saddle's quite quick, but just to tell you, the saddle area, if I wanted to put a custom pattern on there, I'd probably take that saddle into something like ZBrush and texture it up in there, and then export and also UV layout it in ZBrush or in here, it's up to you. Then I can texture it directly within ZBrush, and I can also produce a normal or a bump map straight out of ZBrush, import it straight back in here and apply it. And so there are quicker methods for doing these things, but as this course is all on Maya, I'm going to show you how to do it on Maya, but just wanted you to have that and to bear that in mind. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is just get rid of all of these materials, because we're going to be applying new ones. So I've just selected across them, and then I just hit the delete. It will basically clear all the materials, and these are turned to a kind of greeny colour, and it means that there's no material assigned to it. Now I've also, in my layers, if you did the polygon course, you'll know that I've split everything up. I've still got my curves in there for controlling the cables, and I've got my projection planes in there. I don't need my projection planes anymore, so I could go ahead and just delete this layer. So I can right hand click and just delete the layer there. Then I can come in here and just delete that as well, because I don't need that. Also then I'm going to make sure that all of these are not in reference or templating mode. I'm going to select across them all. Actually, the one that I'm going to put into rendering mode will be the lights, because I don't need to touch those. So I select across it all by just clicking and dragging, and inside my hypershade I'm going to apply just this Lambert material. So I'm going to right hand click that and assign to selection. This will make it all this default Lambert. Okay, so we've done that. Now for people that haven't done the polygon modelling course, I created these layers in here. To create a new layer, what you do is you click here, create a new layer. That'll appear, it's appeared there. At the moment there's nothing on it, but what I do to get something on it is like select the wheel, and then I make sure the layer's selected, I right hand click and I add selected. Now if I turn that off, you'll see it'll disappear. Yeah? Now if I delete that layer, it will not delete this object, it will just delete the layer, and this object will become not part of any of the layers. So excuse me. So if I want to put that back into my tyres, into my wheels layer, I would click that layer, right hand click and add selected. Now my wheels have gone back into the correct layers. I can come back into that one, just right hand click and just delete that layer out. So that's how I did that. What I've got here is, you'll see that there's curves, and we use curves here to create these cables. So if you want to know how to do all of that stuff and how this was all set up, then just go on and pay for the Polygon 14 hours of Polygon modelling. Okay, with that said and done, I'm going to turn my curves off there, and we're going to start to sort of just get these into a colour. Now the first thing I want to do is maybe create a kind of copper chrome colour for these gears. Yeah, so the gears that I've got here, the chain, this lovely chain that we've got going on. So what I'm going to do is again go into Hypershade. Let me just start and show you how to get into that. Windows, Rendering, Hypershade. Yeah, Rendering Editor, Hypershade. That will pop up this screen. Now here are my mental ray materials. These are my Maya ones. I can close this off, but these are my mental ray ones. Okay, and if you haven't got these available, it means that you haven't got, your rendering is not on mental ray. Okay, so we want to make a sort of like chromy copper material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this one here. I've got a Maya material X pass, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to come into my editor here, and I'm going to put this as copper metal, and then X pass 2, so I know it's an X pass 2 material, and hit the enter. So it will change within Hypershade. You can see it's labelled that. Now to apply this to this chain, I could go around and select these individually. Because I've put them on a layer, makes it really easy for me to come down to my chain layer and select all objects like that. Okay, if I zoom out, you can see that it's selected all of the objects. Yeah. What I can do now is I can come to my copper material, either up here or down here, right hand click and assign to material. Now that's assigned that material to this, and what I can do now is I can come into my attributes, come into my copper metal X pass material 2, I can come down to my presets, I can click copper and replace, and you'll see this will change. Now I've put it into a copper colour, but the copper colour I've got is just too much, it's just too gold, I need a bit of silver in there. So what you can do using the presets, which is really cool, is I can go to the preset, I can choose a chrome. Once you've chosen the chrome, I can then click the chrome and I can go blend 25%. So now what it's done is it's blended the two presets together and changed the settings in here to give you 25% of chrome and the 75% of the copper material. So you play around with that. It's brilliant to do that, especially play around with the things such as the satin kind of finishes, this satin metal. So I might add a little bit of that in there. I might put a 10% of that in there as well. And let's just do a quick render of this. It's not going to be a good quality because we've got it all on draft, but it will give us an idea. Yeah, so that looks quite nice. Maybe I want to take this colour a little bit more into the kind of whitey colour and draw this back a little bit more. So there's a difference. Now I'll just do a re-render of that. Okay, yeah, that's a bit better. It's a bit darker, a bit more metallic. Now it'll look really cool once we put it into the high quality render, which we'll just do quickly now. I'll just show you quality. We'll take this up to production and we'll just do a quick render of it now. This is before. Yeah, see, much better, but obviously doubles up on your time. Still 12 seconds, so it's not too bad. So I'll leave it on production for now, but if the time increases then I'll be dropping it back to draft. And so I suggest you do the same. If you think oh, it's just taking too long, I just want to see a preview of it, then flick it back to draft. But at the moment I'm going to leave it on production. Okay, so we've done that. So what I suggest you do now is go around to anything that you want to be this kind of coppery colour and just add it to it. I personally think that that's the only thing at the moment that I want in that kind of copper. Maybe these pieces in here, maybe the gears in here would look good in that colour. So once again I've just selected those manually and I just assign to selection. So now they've gone into this colour. Yep, now let's set up a chrome colour. We're going to do exactly the same as we did before. I'm going to come across here, grab a My Material X. You can label it in here, but I'll label it in here. And I'm going to put, I'm just going to put chrome for this. So it's a good idea as you work through these to just name them as well. It makes them much easier to spot inside of the hypershade. And presets. See, I haven't selected anything. I'm just going straight into presets now. I'm going to chrome and I'm just going to replace. So I'm putting a chrome in there actually, and then I'm going to replace with a little bit of satined metal, 25% satined metal, just to take that edge off of it. Now I'm going to select all the objects I want to be this chrome colour. So I'm going to go through all of these and just select the ones I want. And onto the front of the bike now, just these parts here, this middle area. and of course the forks. This and these. Whoa. I'll do those later because they need unclipping. I'm gonna just do these little parts here as well. Okay, and yeah, here is a good place to do. Anything else? No, I think that's good. Okay, so bring the hypershade back here and assign to material. So we're just going to test that metal out, just check that it's okay. So get that in position. This render time will take a bit more time because of the chrome. If this size isn't big enough, then obviously increase the size that you've got. Yeah, I mean it's nice. Look, you can see here. That's quite good. These gears at the back haven't gone into this colour for some reason, so I'll just reassign those. That's better. Okay, it's looking a bit white, washed out, a bit white, but you can see where the satin, it's taken the chrome off it a little bit, but there's still enough. You can see the shadow coming in there. So yeah, happy with that. Again, we've got no lighting in there, or we haven't got any shadows going on in there and stuff, so that's going to affect it. Okay, so the next thing to do, let's just take something like the tyres. We want this kind of matte black. So at the moment we're just colouring it all up, we're not adding textures or anything else, we're just getting all our materials sorted. So for these tyres, these rubber areas, I'm just going to put them into a Lambert. It's a nice flat colour. So let's label these tyres or rubber, and that'll do for that one. Okay, so he's in there, so assign to material. I'm not going to make it jet black for the tyres, I'm going to make it just a dark colour like this. And now I'm going to save this as, and this will be bike texture 1, and save that off. Okay, and I think what I'll do is I'll just put a polygon ground on here. I've just gone into the polygon tab and I've just selected the plane there. Come into my polyplane settings, set both of these on 1. Now I'm going to press R on the keyboard to go into this mode, which is a scale mode. I'm just going to blow this out. And I think what I'll do is I'll just set another ground up. I'm going to make it a blend material. Just going to put ground in here. And that will be good, and I'll make it a lighter colour, white. So you'll see it's already gone into that white. If I change this, you can see it's visually telling me that it's already got that colour applied to it. And I will put him into here. That's good. And I'll put him into reference mode. Just gives me a bit of grounding on this model. Okay, let's do a quick render of this. Okay, so that's kind of getting there. Got the chain, you can see these are nice and bright, you can see them. Might need to take this down a little bit. This might be a bit too bright, but I haven't got any shadows going on, or minimal shadows going on, so it's that'll dull it down a bit. Okay, so moving on, let's do our spokes and our inner frame here. going to come into my material X again, which automatically deselects all of this. Okay, and I'm going to apply that to this. Come back into my options in here and label this wheel rim, or rin. I've put rim. Okay, and I'll just take this and I'm going to make it a satined metal. Just replace that. And maybe take a little bit of this, add it in there. Okay, and as I said before, just keep testing your renders. Right, as you can see, that's getting there, that's good. Right, let's take this saddle area now. And the saddle area is going to be a kind of leather, so it's going to have a little bit of a sheen, but not too much. So I think what I'll do is I will make it a blend material. I'm going to drop it back to a dark colour, like this. And now I'm going to just go into the bump mapping and I'm going to pick the leather. Okay, you can't see anything happening, so I've gone into the blend. Yeah, I went into the bump mapping and I picked the leather, and this gives me this. If I now come across, I'm just going to save this because sometimes it'll crash. Shouldn't do. I go into renderer and I go to viewport 2. You'll see it'll give me an indication of where the bump mapping is, and you can change this right down. I'm going to make the crease colour black, and I'm going to make the cell colour white, and I'm going to dial it down. Now what I've done there is I've basically created a bump map. Now black being the maximum recessed area that a bump map will create, and white being the maximum push out. So that's why this is looking really pushed out. So in order to equalize these two, I can do one or two things. I can increase the crease color, so it'll push out, and I can also decrease the cell color. You'll see it'll almost look like it's pushing in, and that's pretty good. The density you can decrease, or you can manually set it and increase it, which I'm going to do. Spottiness, I'll leave. Randomness, it's already on random, and the threshold. So let's just zoom out a little bit and view this. I'm rendering this out now, and so you can see it's given me a good representation, but it's just a little bit too strong. So what I can do is dial these back. I want to decrease my density, and my cell size I think I'm going to make a little bit bigger. And we'll try that. definitely getting there, but it's just too strong again. Well, what you can do is you can do an IPR render, so I can just select across here, it'll select a certain amount of it, then I can just change this, and then I can just hit the IPR there, it'll just render this section. So yeah, you can see it's dialing back nicely there, maybe a bit more. Bring the threshold down a little bit. I'm going to just decrease the cell size. And yeah, doesn't look too bad. Let's try it now. So I've decreased the cell size. So you can see what I'm doing, I'm just fiddling around with it till I get it right. That's not bad. Okay, now I can you know, keep playing around with the cell size and increase colour, but if I click this little arrow here, you've got bump depth. Now it's too much, so I'm going to half this. It's 0.5. Hit enter. Now I'm just going to save this image so I can compare, and I'm just going to render this out. Now remember, you're going to be a lot further away from this seat, so there you go. You can see it's decreased it, just taken that edge off of it. Okay, so that's all good. I'm going to take my saddle and actually make it a bit darker now, and I'm going to zoom out to roughly where you would see it from, which is about there. So we just want it to give a kind of indication that there's leather on there. It just picks up this kind of specular. You can see it just sort of picks that specular, and you could get fairly close to it and it still look good. So that's a quick way of applying a bump map using the built-in features within Maya. Just selecting the bump map and then going to that material. If you wanted to mirror that bump map onto the colour, you could do that as well, but I'm going to leave it as this because I'm actually going to texture map this as well. I'm going to put like a white kind of streak in there, in that fold. So, but then I don't have to worry about the bump map. So that's one way of bump mapping without actually bump mapping. So what's the next thing I want to do? Well, I want to take this and I want to make it into a white. So I'm going to just use a, actually I'll use a metallic, I'll use a white plastic metallic. So I'm going to use the MirX material again. I'm going to label this as plastic underscore. I'm going to go to my presets and I'm going to choose the glossy plastic, replace that, and of course I'm going to change the colour to a white. Okay, now I'm going to select this and I'm going to just put it into that plastic. So there we have that one. What we can also do is, let me just delete it so I can show you. If you've got a material that you've created like this white plastic and you're happy with it, and you want to create another material that is going to be, say, a black plastic, really easy. We don't need to go to our MirX's and grab all that stuff again and do all the settings. What we can do is select it in here, press Ctrl C on your keyboard and then press Ctrl V, and it'll automatically put one in and it will call it pasted plastic, which you can see there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this black underscore, and then I'm going to change this to a black like this, and I'm going to go and select all my cables, hopefully. Let's select all these cables. I think that's all of them. I think we've got some down here as well, and I think, nope, that's good. Alright, so with all those selected, I can now go back. Actually, these are going to be in the black plastic as well, these holders. So I'll select those, and even my seals, I've got seals around here. Although they're kind of rubber, they're so small, I think I can get away with using the same material. And I think I'll even go down and put the same on my inner tube and cap there as well. If you can use the same material and then you render at the end and see if it doesn't look right, then you might have to do a separate material for it, but if you can get away with it, then use the same. And I'll even take my pedals, which are going to be a plastic as well, and maybe I should even grab the grips. Maybe not those, but these, because these would be more rubbery. And this part as well in here. And I think I'll grab that as well, and finally I'll grab that. Right, that's good. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to put all that into that plastic. So there it is. So assign to material. At this stage, I'm just going to turn wireframe off. Makes it a bit clearer for us to see. I'm also going to put into that chrome metal that I had. I'm thinking whether to do these, because these are the thin cables. Now I was going to apply a kind of bump map to give a kind of knotted cable effect, but you're not going to see it that close. But I think for demo purposes I will do that, just to show you. But I would normally, if I was this distance, I wouldn't bother doing that, and I would just put them straight into the into one of the materials that I've already got. Yeah, something's funny's going on there. Okay, so the next thing to do, I think also, is to put the end parts of these, which I've got one over here as well. Just shift selected so that they are both selected, as you can see, there and there. And then I'm just going to put those into one of the other chrome colours that we've got, so like that. Okay, my lights around this side. I'm just going to do a quick render of this. In fact, at this point I'm going to change the size and make the thing a bit bigger so we can see it a bit clearer. I'll change this to 900 and make this 600, and just do a quick render of that. Okay, so there you go. We can see we've got the metal running around here. We got this this plastic colour running on here and through the cables. The tyres are this plastic. We've got this copper chromey colour for the chain, and all the other bits, and the white plastic for the pump there, and chrome here. So it's coming on, but you can see there's a massive bit that we've got the forks and we've got the frame to do. Before we do that, we're going to jump into a bit of UV texturing for the tyres. At the moment our tyres, if you look, let's come close in, there's nothing on them. So we need to get a little bit of a pattern going on in here. So I sort of see like a tread pattern working, with maybe kind of a red line going around it, with it saying something like Dunlop or Goodyear, Dunlop Elite or something. My render of this is this. So this satiny colour is, it's all really nice, looks lovely, but the tyres are just a bit bland, there's nothing going on. So we are going to UV unwrap these. Now I've already unwrapped these, but so I will be showing you from scratch how to do that. So if I go into my UV texture editor, this is the kind of thing that we're going to try to achieve. Okay? Now your tyres, if you go into the texture editor, will look nothing like this because they won't have been UV unwrapped. So what we're doing, if I select this faces, you'll see, let's come to the tyre. I just selected those faces and you can see that it's just on the top, right the way around. Yeah? And the other two, if I just select across these, you'll see that it's both sides of the tyre, which is perfect because I can run a line round, I can put text on them, and the top areas, the parts can be bump mapped, so I can just focus my bump mapping on this top area here. So I'm bearing that in mind when I unwrapped these. Now I'm going to sort of send this back to what it was before in a manner. That's it, clean. If I now go to polygon up here, create UVs, and I'm just going to automatic map. So it's confused. Okay, whatever yours is, it doesn't matter what it looks like because we're about to start with the UV unwrapping at this stage. I just wanted to make it in a confused state so that you know, this would be quite hard to add a continuous bump map texture along the top. It'd just be impossible, and it's broken it there, so it's made an awful mess of it. Although it is fairly clean in the fact that it's automatically mapped it every side, but we don't need that. We just need 3 maps. We just need a Z direction and a cylinder UV unwrap. So we're going to start off by doing that. We're going to do a cylinder UV of this. So I'm going to go to create UVs and cylinder mapping. Just going to click that on there. Now if we come into my UVs, it looks a mess, but we're going to change that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this. It's actually the wrong way round. So I'm going to press T on the keyboard, and then I'm going to hit this little circle, this little blue circle. This will allow me to rotate it. Now I'm going to rotate it this way. Now in here I'm going to set this to 90. Now I need to turn it this way, so I'm going to set that to 90. Okay, and what we've done is we are now mapping around the circle. Okay, from the center it's mapped right the way around the circle, which is what we want. We want the projection sweep to be 360. There's our projection horizontal sweep. Okay, now let's have a look at the UV map. There it is, it's a straight line, which is kind of what we want. So I'm just going to get that, press the R on the keyboard. So sorry, I go over it, I select UVs, I drag across. Now I can scale this down or up or whatever. I can use the move tool to move it around. The problem is that the side of the wheels are kind of like here, projected down, so we need to separate them out from the rest. So we can do that. Okay, so to be able to do that, we need to, first of all, we were in 3 on your keyboard, which softens it. You need to press 1 on your keyboard to come out of that soften mode. And what we're going to try and do is project the sides. So to be able to do that, we need to select the top faces. So I'm going to come into top view, and I'm just going to zoom down to it. Then I'm going to right hand click and choose faces. I'm going to drag through these faces like this, and that should just give me the faces, which I think it does. Yeah, nice. It gives me the inside face as well, but which might be visible. Which I don't really want. So I come into my front view here, and I'm just going to hold the control key while I kind of click through them. So remember, I'm not going on to the top, I'm just clicking through these areas, and I'm just going to deselect these faces. So I'm basically trying to break away the top of the tire away from the rest of it, and I'm pressing and holding the control key like that. So that's now, none of my inside is selected, it's only my outside area. Okay, so now what I want you to do is go to select and convert selection to UVs. Now you should better use the move tool and move these down. Sorry, go to polygon, split UVs, what am I talking about? Sorry, I'm going down the wrong route here. It's easier than that, I'm just being stupid. Okay, yeah, what I need to do, sorry, is just to select the UVs, or sorry, the edge, and make sure I've got the right edge, which is here. Yeah. Then I'm going to come on to the other side, hold the shift key and select that. That would have formed a loop, edge loops around there. So I now want to go to select, convert selection to UVs. Inside of here you'll see that they're UVs. We go to polygon and then split UVs. Okay, that will split them away from the sides. Now if I come back into here and select my UVs, and come back into here, I should go to select and select shell. Now it will have split it, so I can move it down. Now that basically means that I have this bit selected from the other. So if I go into here, it makes it easier to see. If I right hand click, go to faces and then select these faces and come back into here, you'll see that it's selected all the faces, of course apart from this one, so I need to split this out, but it doesn't matter, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and now with those selected I'm going to do a create UVs planar map, but this time I'm going to do it on the Z, and I'm going to project, and you'll see that it's projected. If I come into my editor, you'll see that now it has projected those. So if I right hand click, go to UVs, and then I use a scale tool, scale these out the way. Now I want to redo these because they're in the wrong place. This one should be up here. So let's zoom in here, make sure he's in the right place. Or I could just select these parts and do a cylinder projection again, but this will be fine for what I'm trying to do. Right, so the only part I've got to do now is to actually separate the two halves of the tyres, because at the moment we're looking through it. Well, this causes a problem, because if I did say some text on here, it would go through and it would show as reverse on the other side. Try it, just try applying something to that and you'll see what I mean. So what we need to do is separate the two halves. So I can do that easily. I can just come into the UV here, I can select one of these, come back into my UV texture editor, I can go to select and shell, and now I can move, oh hold on, it selected the two shells. I need to separate it, so right hand click, go to edge, double click around the whole edge, and then go to select and UVs, so convert selection to UVs, which you'll see has put it along this edge as well. So now I go to the polygons and split UVs. Now with any luck, if I select a UV in here and then I select a shell, let me just check. Strange, it should be selecting. Oh, I think it's because of the bottom. I might need to just turn the wheels off here so I can I just need to select this edge here, which I think is causing more problems. So select, convert selection to UVs, come in here, polygon, split the UVs, select this side again, come into select shell, and move that across. Yeah, so there we go. The problem that happened there, if I'd have brought the inside of the tyre across with this, then we never would have had that problem happening. So what I had to do was basically use the UVs or the edge to break not just the top but also the bottom area. And for this I could do the same. Remember, you can also come in here and select edges from here as well if you want to, but that's going to be fine. So now if I select, come in and just select both left and right for the right hand click and go to face, we can see that one side of the tyre will now be selected, which is that side. Yep. And if I select this, you'll see that the other side will be selected like that. And finally, if I select the top, you'll see that that's just selected as well. And the very inside of the tyre that you can't see is actually around this inner edge here. But you can't see it because it's basically behind the other edge. Now, because there's no texture mapping going on that inside, I don't have to worry about it. So the next thing to do is just to check that everything is correct and how we want it. So we use a checker map to do that. Now there is a checker map feature within Maya, but I've created my own, which I think is better. And I will be supplying this checker map. I'll put it on there so you can have it. Basically it's a checker map, it's just got different colours, but I've also put numbers in there. So with this selected now, I'm just going to put this back to 1. And we're going to just apply the checker map to it. So I'm going to go into my attribute editor over here. I'm going to find our Lambert rubber tyre shader there. In fact, while I'm in here, I might want to just save this and clear the history on this component. Go to edit, delete by type history. It just gets rid of all that rubbish. And now I'm going to go into the colour attribute, just hit this checkbox. And now I'm going to go to File, and now I'm going to find my checker map, which is actually on my desktop. Here it is, and this is it. It shows me very clearly 1, 2, 3 direction and things like that. It really helps. Coming a bit large there, not a problem, because I can hit this little arrow, sorry, this way, and we can repeat the UVs. So I'll repeat them by 5. I'll also put it back to the default renderer. So this isn't bad, but it tells you where things are warping. Actually, it looks wrong. What's going on here? Let's have a look. That needs to be 5. That's better. Okay, yeah, it's not bad, but now by looking at this view and using the UV texture editor, so right hand click the UVs, I can now use my scale tool to try and get this squarer. Well, that's much squarer. So now I'm going to just bring this down. Might need to just bring these out more. So what we're trying to do is get them so they're looking square. I might need to repeat this pattern more actually, because it's a very thin edge. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to put this to 10. Okay. Yeah. So the thing I'm trying to do is get these so that they are square against our pattern. That's square. Okay, that's good. That'll then give me the right ratio, the right when I'm actually creating a lettering text and those sort of things, I know it's not going to warp too much. Right, these pieces here look pretty square to me, but I'm also just going to double check. Look, you see here, this these numbers are back to front, so I'm going to select this shell, that side, which is this one I think, and I'm going to go select shell, and what I want to do is flip it over. So I'm going to flip it, there we go, in the U direction. Let's just hit that. You won't see any change, but if we look on the model now, you can see these numbers are the correct way round. So by having numbers on there, it really makes it easy for you to see if your UVs are facing the wrong way or the right way. And you'll also see that while I'm doing the front wheel, the back wheel is also being done at the same time. Although it's not, it's just part of the same shader. Sorry, being stupid. So what I generally do is I do one wheel, and if it's going to be exactly the same, then what I do is I delete this wheel and drag it across. But this is all fine, so I'm going to select all these UV shells and I'm just going to maximize them like this. I want to take up the maximum area. Okay, that'll do me. I'm going to take this wheel back here, and I'm just going to delete that because I'm going to be using this wheel. I can also now get rid of my checker because I'm happy with it. So to get rid of the checker, all you do is go in the Lambert where you had the colour, you just right hand click and you break connection, and it will take it back to the grey colour. And I'll drop that back down to there. But all my UVs in my UV texture editor, which you can get to by Window UV texture editor, are still there. And this is all ready now for the next step, which will be playing around with it in Photoshop. So I right hand click, go to UVs, drag across all of my UVs, make sure that they are in this 0 to 1 area, that's this square. Do not put them into this area, or this area. Keep them in this area. Okay. go to polygons and UV snapshot, and it will save it where you want. So browse and save it where you want. I'm going to call this tires out map. Yeah. Set the size. Now this is dependent. If you're doing an image that's really close in on the tires, then it's going to be like your image is going to be for 4,000 or something. You'll need to up this. But if you're going to be like a 2,000 pixel by pixel times pixel width and height, then 2,000 is going to be fine. You're never going to get that close. In fact, if you're far away, you might even want to drop this right down to like even down to 512 kmap. This just gives you the pixel dimensions. Now I'm going to stick with 2048 for my one. Also the UV range I've got in 0 to 1, and that relates to this box here. You could choose other boxes that are other extended ranges, but we keep it 0 to 1 for this tutorial. Now I click OK. Now where I've saved it is desktop bike images tire out map, so I'm clicking OK. Alright, now I know that's saved, so now we jump into Photoshop. Before I do that, I'm just going to save this scene, and now I'm going to open Photoshop. Okay, so I'm in Photoshop now, and I just want to open up that map that we just created. So I'm going to my images folder and the tires out map. Just open that up, and there it is. And as you can see, if we go to image and then image size, it's 2048 by 2048, which is what we produced it at. First thing I'm going to do is double click the background layer and just click OK. This will mean that I can move it through the layers, and then I'm going to create a new layer, and this new layer for now I'm going to drop below. I'm just dragging and dropping below. I've got white selected. If you haven't got white selected, just hit this and then just swap these colours over using this little thing here. Come into the paint bucket and just drop that in, and as you see, that's white now. Well, what I can do now is take this top layer and go to image and go to adjustments and then invert, and now I'm just going to put it on multiply, and that means that if I now click this base layer again and click a colour like blue and drop it in there, my thing will be visible. So what we need to do is put some text and some red circle around this, so that that will be our texture, and we're going to use this file for both our texture and our bump map. So if we label this, I'll just double click and label this as UVs, just hit enter, and this one I'm just going to put just call it base, something like that. And now I'm going to create a new layer, and this one is going to have my graphics on it, so I label it graphics. Now we're going to come up here and we're going to get our ellipse marquee tool. I'm going to zoom in on one of these, just bring it up, and I'm just going to, I'll just move this history onto my other monitor. I'm just going to bring this down and just lock it at the top of there and at the side of there. The reason I'm doing this is when I pull from here, hold the shift key when you drag and it will constrain it to a circle. Now I can put that right along the edge, as you can see. So I don't want my circle to appear right along the edge, so I just press Ctrl D to deselect, and I'm just going to come in a little bit. So I'm going to grab my move tool, just grab these bits and just move them in slightly, because I want my red line to appear just inside of the circle there, not too close to the edges of the UVs. Now I'm going to do exactly the same, drag out. Remember, you can just press the shift key and it will constrain it to a circle, and then I'm going to put it into its approximate position, which is about there. Now what I'm going to do is select any old colour, because it won't be visible when I've finished, and I'm just going to drop that in there. Now I'm going to press Ctrl D to deselect, and I'm going to come into layer and layer style, and I'm just going to grab the stroke key. As you see, automatically it's put a line around it. Now I want it to be on the inside, so position, I'm going to just choose inside, so it's appeared on the inside of it, and I'm going to choose a nice red colour, and I'm also going to crank this up, the size of it, to about 5, make it a bit bolder, and I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to grab the fill colour on this layer and drag this down to 0. That will get rid of that fill and just leave us with this nice red line. And what I want to do now is I want to duplicate this layer, okay, and then I want to go to Edit and Free Transform, and just pull it down a bit. Now I'm just going to shift it back into position, so I'm just going to double click on that, just use the move tool and get it into a good position. I generally use the keys, the up down keys for this, so that you've got it nicely all the way around. Now I'm going to go back into the stroke and I'm going to set it on 2. It makes it a bit thinner. Okay, so next thing I need to do is put some text in here. Now I like the size of all these things. In fact, this I'm going to bring down to 4, 3, make it a little bit, and I think I'm going to just free transform this so it's a little bit closer. Just going to drag it up a little bit, double click and use my arrows to just get that in position like that. Okay, that just gives me a little bit more room around here to put the text into position. So, because I want my text to be nice and clear, I think I'm now going to drop black into the base layer. Actually, sorry, I'm going to pick a kind of... I'm going to pick a dark grey from up here. There we go. So I can still see the text, but I can also still see the UVs. And now I'm going to click the text tool and I'm going to type in here Dunlop. Now you can grab a logo off the internet and do exactly the same. I'm just going to select this text because it's in a grey so you can't see it, so I want to put it into a white, so I'm going to come up here, select the white, then I'm going to do a hyphen and just put something like XL, and then I'm going to take this text and I'm going to make it more of a kind of scripty type of text, something like that. And I might blow the size up on that a bit as well. Let's make it 400. That's pretty good. Okay, so we've got that text, and now I want to go to Edit and Free Transform. Free transform this text down and get it into position on the tire. Something like that. Now I'm going to use this to magnifying glass just to zoom in. And this typeface, the L is just too much. So I'm going to probably change it for something else. Yeah, I might bring this down to like 30. Okay, that's a bit better. Alright, so we need to get it to run around this curve. So it's pretty easy actually. We just need to come up to the layer, down to type, and then down to warp text. We need to select an arc. You can see what's happening straight away. We need to just, it's not much of a bend, and we just basically warp it until it fits. That's pretty good. Click OK. Use the move tool. Just get that into position. About there. I'm going to pull out and I'm going to duplicate this text. So duplicate the text and then just use the free transform, that'll work. I'm going to shunt it 90 degrees there, come down here I'm using the Control Plus to zoom in, and I'm using the space bar to be able to move around. And I want to just grab this and put this into position along here. Might need to just transform it a little bit there. That's good. And maybe one more time. So I'll just duplicate my layer, come into the free transform, come down here, Control Plus to zoom in, space bar to move up, move it into position. Notice I'm using my UV lines as a guide. Double click that, and one more time. Control Plus to move in, space bar to move across. That's about right. Okay, so that's one of the sides of the tyres done. So what I want to do now is I just want to come in here. I've selected these layers that we've done this graphics on. Now I'm going to do a new group from layers. I'm going to call it Tyre Graphics 1. I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to duplicate this group. Okay, I'm going to turn that one off. I've selected that one, and I'm just going to drag this across. I'm going to just zoom in, make sure that everything's in position. Use my arrow keys just to be sure of that. That's about right. And suddenly we've got two lots of tyres all done. Okay, now we need to make the base a bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with a black. I'm going to come to filter, and I'm going to add noise to it. Not too much noise, just a little bit of noise, like that. Now I'm going to go into adjustments and just bring the brightness up a little bit. Now I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to grab a fairly dark grey, something like that, and I'm just going to drop that in there. I'm going to go to my modes, and I'm going to go to lighten, and that will just lighten those areas. And now I'm going to press Ctrl E to blend it down onto that layer like that, and it's lightened it slightly, but it's still got a tyre colour. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this file. So this is my tyres out map, and it's going to be in my images. It's a PSD file, so it's in a location I can easily get to. This is not the one I'm going to use for my texture. This is the one that's going to hold the bump map information plus the texture information and mean that I can go in and easily edit it. So the next thing we need to do is just produce this as a texture map. So I'm going to turn the UV layer off. I'm just going to go into File, and I'm going to go Save As, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And I'm going to call this Tyre TEX for texture, and I'm going to save it. I'm going to say I want it to be about 8 compression. Right, now with that done, this is not the bump mapping stage, this is purely texture stage. I'm going to go into Maya again. I'm going to right click, I'm going to click this to select it. Make sure that we're in 3 mode. I'm going to come into my colour. I'm going to click the colour check there, check file, and I'm going to locate that file, which is in my bike and in my images. Actually, I should have put this in my source images folder. So I'm just going to resave this in my source images. Save as. You can just drag and drop it, but I want it source images, and I want it in here as a JPEG. just to keep everything organised so all my maps are in the right area. So TX there, click OK, come back into here, select the file now from my bike and my source images, and this is the texture map that we just created. So I'm going to click open, and now instantly that has been applied to this. So have a look at it, and I'll just do a quick render of this. Right, there it is. So nice and sharp. I do have a little gap appearing between here and the tyre, and this is because I've put it on smooth mode. As you can see, I think it's been moved. Yeah, it looks like it's been moved a little bit. So I'm going to come into my side view here and just move this back to where it should be. That's better. Now if I look at this tyre now, yeah, we should be right to the edges on all of it and nothing overlapping. And as you can see, the other side has also got it. If I check my UV map now, I go into Windows and UV Texture Editor, this will show me the position. If it is round the wrong way, your text is round the wrong way, just remember to select the UVs across where it is the wrong way and then just do a flip on the horizontal or the U direction. Okay, so the next thing we've got to put on there, as you can see from this tyre, we've got no tread. So we're going to use bump mapping to create this tread for the tyre. We're going to come back to our original, but before I do that I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to come back to our original PSD file, which is this one, and I'm just going to turn a few of these things off. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to turn these off, don't need these. I will need these. But in this new layer I'm going to drop in a colour, and my colour that I'm going to pick is going to be a mid-range colour, and so in these RGB settings I want you to put 128. Now the range is 256 between white and black within the grey range, and bitmaps are based on grey range colours. So midpoint 128 would be no distortion at all. And then going back to push into the model, you would use black or degrees of black from 128 back to 0. Obviously white would push out, so from 128 to 256 would be degrees of push out. So you can play around with those settings and see how they kind of work, or play around with those colours and see how they affect the bump mapping. But as a general rule, start from 128, put that in as a base, turn on my UV layers. Now we're going to start to create an elaborate tread system. Now it's up to you, you can use programs such as Adobe Illustrator to create your tread lines, and it makes it a bit easier, and then you can just import them or copy and paste them straight into this document and then resize them, or you can do it straight in this document. I'm going to do a very simple tread pattern that we can put along this strip here, which is the top of the tyre, or where the tread should be. So I'm going to create a new layer now, and this will be the tread layer. So I'm going to put in here tread, and I'm going to put in here bump base, and I'm just going to save this again. So remember now that both our bump map and our graphics texture map is contained within this one PSD file, which is tires outmap.psd, which we created. So I'm going to create the tread, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm on the tread layer, remember, and at this point I'm not going to do it to size, I'm going to do it a bit bigger, so I can always reduce it down. I'm going to grab a rectangle like this, and I'm going to just drop a white into this, like so. And now I'm going to just do a kind of cutout. So I'm going to take a little square, and I'm going to go to select and transform selection. I'm just going to turn it round 45 degrees, and then I'm just going to double click it, or just apply it with the move tool. Go back to that selection tool, because then you'll be able to move this in. And I'm going to move it there, and I'm just going to delete. I'm going to move it there, and I'm going to delete. Okay, it'll all make sense in a moment. Now I'm going to free transform this and just turn it 45 degrees. Now I'm going to duplicate this layer and move it out to about there, maybe a bit more. Then I'm going to make sure that I'm on this duplicate. I'm going to press Ctrl E to merge it down, so I've merged the two, and I'm going to repeat this step. So once again I'm going to come out like this, try and get it as close as you can. I'm going to make sure I'm on the top layer. I'm going to press Ctrl E to duplicate those treads again, and repeat, repeat, repeat. So here, if you want to, you can put it over the top of another one to get the distance. Now Ctrl E again to merge it down, duplicate, Ctrl E. So you could refer to reference here and actually do proper treads if you wanted to. Sure, on the internet there's loads of tread patterns that you could use. So Ctrl E. Right, at this point I'm going to free transform the whole lot down. That's probably about right for the tread pattern. Yeah. I'm going to zoom in here. Let's just zoom in. Okay. I'm going to duplicate now with this, and I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform, and Flip Vertically. Now I'm going to bring this down, and I'm going to press Ctrl E, and so I've got a kind of tread pattern appearing now. So I'm going to duplicate this layer again, move it right to the end, just use the arrows to get it a bit more, press Ctrl E to merge it down. Now what I want to do is a kind of a line through it as well, so I'm going to use this single marquee rule, and I'm just going to drag, press the shift key and just drag a series of these out. Now I'm just going to hit delete, and it will cut a line through these. Now I'm going to do another one here and here, and maybe one here and one here. I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to press delete, and then I'm going to press fill, and I'm going to fill them, deselect. Now I'm going to move out like this, and now final thing to do is to position this and scale it. Now notice that I've put this point right at the end, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to have a gap on the other end, so I'll be probably using the free transform to do that. But before I do that, I'm just going to scale all this in like this. Okay, that's quite good. Come up the other end. I've got a bit too much going on there, so I'm just going to get rid of this. Select, whoa, need to just select the rectangle tool, drag that, delete that out because we don't need that, and that in there, just delete. I'm going to duplicate this up and once again move it, zoom in, make sure that it's about the same, which it is. Now I'm going to just merge this down as we have done before, and now I've got to extend this just a little bit to make it so that the end is just there. So I'm looking, yeah, that's where it starts again. So I've got a repeating pattern, starts there, ends there, and then carries on, just in case there's any problems. I can leave this bit at the end, it doesn't really matter because this is where the UVs are, so this is where it will map to. Okay, so now I can turn this UV off and I've got a tread pattern appearing. It's in white, it's quite small, so sometimes you might find that it's a bit sharp, and if it's a bit sharp and you need it to be taken away a little bit, then the good thing to use is filter and then use the Gaussian blur. I don't think I'm going to have to with this one. So now what I do is I just save this, and I'm going to go to save as now, and this will be my bump map. So I'm going to come down to my JPEG and I'm tires, and I'm just going to put at the end here bump, and I'm going to click save and save. That's okay. Come back into Maya now, right hand click object mode, go into the Lambert shader, come down to the bump mapping, click the little checkpoint, hit the file, make sure you're in the file there, select the bump. I've done the same as I did last time. I need to save it in the source images file, which is here. Let's just do that. Okay. Back. Okay, so there he is there. So I opened that up. You might not see anything happening, it's because we're not in the preview mode to see that. But believe me, there is something happening. I just need to go to renderer and to viewpoint. Need to pick my correct camera, and you can see there, if I go into high quality render, you can see it's put it on there. I'll just zoom out now and we'll do a render and you'll see. Now, you might not have to change these settings, the default settings might be fine. Okay, so as you can see, it's put this mapping around it, which now gives the illusion that there's actually tread on the tyre. Maybe I overcomplicated it as it's quite tight, but you can still see it's given the indication that light's bouncing off of it and that it's a ruffled surface. I do notice here that I've got a problem, the tyre's just pushing in a little bit, but I'm not sure if that's reflection or whether it's actually the tyre breaking through the geometry. So let's move in. But what I wanted to point out with bump mapping does not change the surface, and this can be a problem if we've got real close-ups. This will still be a sharp circle going around, and of course if you were this close on a camera, then took a photo of it, then you would see undulations where the tread's popping through and breaking this circle. So this is something to bear in mind with bump mapping. If we wanted to displace this geometry so it actually poked out, we'd have to use a displacement map. This course is not on displacement maps, but I've done loads of displacement map courses on the character workflows and all of those sort of things. So if you look in the ZBrush section and just forward through the video where I've put it together in Maya, you'll see how to do displacement maps. But I'm going to do another course anyway on just displacement maps within Maya, as well as other materials, mental ray materials, and the advanced options in those. This isn't bump mapping it, but it's just to point out that both normal and bump maps will not undulate the surface. So that's that. So let's zoom in really tight so you can see what I mean, and you can see what's happening as well. Okay, so there we can see that it's moved the surface. Like I said, probably this was a little bit too detailed for the size of the area, but I don't really care too much, because at the end of the day I'm going to be rendering out probably this kind of distance, so again, doesn't matter. But what I will do now is select this wheel, and I will move it across. So I will go to modify, center the pivot, go to move mode, press Ctrl D, and I'm going to move this across to this area like this. That's fine. So now we've got our whole bike. Let's just do a quick render of this in its with the bump mapping applied. By the way, if you wanted to, you could rotate this wheel just to make it look like that. I don't want these to look in the same position. Just makes it look a bit more realistic. Okay, so I'm just going to save this scene. And we're just doing a quick render of this, and then we'll move on to the other parts. So we've got the grips to do, and the Shimano bit down here, which I want to put some logos on, the pedal area here, which I think I'll just make into that chrome colour. So here it is here, here's a render. As you can see the tread quite clearly from this kind of distance around these areas. So that looks really nice. The lighting's not the best in the world on this model at the moment, but it'll all come together when we add the lighting and the shadows. And in fact, what I'll do now at this stage, just to demo it to you, don't do this, just watch what I'm doing. So I'm going to select this light. I need to make sure that I can select the light, so I need to go down to my light layer and just turn the R off and select that light. And I'm going to turn on shadows. Mental ray shadows, so I'm going to go down to my mental ray, and I'm going to bring these depths up a little bit. I think I'm going to increase slightly the light on this side. Save the scene. And just do a render of this. So with the shadows, it's going to just give it a second degree. Of realisticness. And plus with the shadows you also get to see the bump mapping a bit clearer as well. It really makes a hell of a difference. Okay, there it is there. So straight away you can just see it's just a lot better with these shadows in. The shadows bouncing on the back, through here, through this area. So it's starting to look much more realistic. So really we've got the frame to do, this Shimano bit, these pedal areas. Pedals, I'm going to straight away put those in. I'm going to select those there. And I'm going to come into my hypershade. You know where the hypershade is, Windows, Rendering, Hypershade. And I'm going to put it into this chrome colour here, like that. I'm also at the same time going to come into this area because I want this part to be chrome, but at the moment it's joined, so I need to go into my groups. So if I go to outliner, you'll see that I've grouped everything nicely, handlebars, and they're actually, I need to separate these, so I need to go to mesh and separate. Press 3 on my keyboard, go into this one, mesh, separate, 3 on my keyboard. I'm just going to put these back into the default Lambert shader. I'm going to select these handles now. You'll see they're still part of the handlebar group, they've just broken them apart. So I'll shift select those, and I'm going to click this chromium here. And this, I'm just going to put this into the black plastic as well that I've got. Got this blend plastic here. Actually, that's got a bump map on it. So black plastic there. There we go. I might change that colour later. Not sure. And this is kind of a rubbery colour. So what I think I'll do is I'll just pick a Lambert for this, and I'm going to call this grips underscore. Oh, needs to, I did the shading group there. Grips underscore, that's it. And I'm not going to make it completely black, I'm going to make it sort of dark grey, something like that. So this is kind of matte colour there. Okay. This should be in the chrome colour, so I'm applying that to that as well. And I think what I'll do is I'll make these discs a different colour. I want it to be kind of a coppery metal colour, the same as I kind of did for the chain, but I think a bit more silver than the chain, so I'm going to do it as a separate group. So I'm going to again select a Maya X material, and I come into this material over here, and I'm going to put silver copper discs in there. I'm going to select the preset, I'm going to select replace this, and for the copper I'm going to replace by 10%, so very subtle. Now I'm going to select these disc areas, so let's take these. That'll do, okay. Now I'm going to apply that silver copper colour we just did, so assign to material, and in fact I think I might even use this as well, have this in that silver copper colour. And maybe this. and this part of the gears here I'm going to put into the black plastic. Yeah, these wires I'm going to put into this chrome colour. These are the end part of the wires, not the main cable, the end part. And we'll do the same for these as well. I think I've got one this side. That'll do. And over here, there. Okay, that's good. If you can't see this side, you can always turn on use default lighting. Okay, so that kind of leaves us with just the Shimano gears now, this part here, and the main frame. Well, the main frame I'm going to use, I'll just use this at the moment, and I'm going to be using a shader that will actually give the effect of this kind of candy colour. Candy colour, when I say candy colour, you know, these like American muscle cars, or like Grease, the cars in there, where they're all kind of got these reds, but like you can see bits of silver and different colours in them. It's because there's basically flakes of silver on different colour paints suspended in the lacquer, and so from different angles it looks like it's different colour. And there's a really good shader in the Mental Ray shader called the the car paint fen passes, which is absolutely brilliant. So what I do is I select the Fenx passes, and default is red. I'm just going to assign it as a default red colour. At the moment you can't see anything. If you look at the preview here, you can get the kind of idea. And I'll leave it in the red for now. I'll just have a look at it and see how it looks. This is a really cool shader. I'm just going to assign all the other bits that are going to go into pretty much the same colour. And we'll just do a render of this. I would point out, I'm just going to label this as frame in here. Okay, let's do a render. Okay, so that's rendered out. So as you can see, this is this fen colour, this candy paint effect that it gives you. And as you can see, it's like the little flakes almost, the colour's kind of changing as it goes throughout. And this is based on this base colour and this lit colour. And so the lit colour gets sort of like down these region, and then the base colour kind of comes through on these regions. And the specularity kind of shifts about a bit. So it's actually a really good effect. Instantly applied there, but we can tweak this and make it even better, and that's what we'll do. And the seat's looking good there as well, so maybe you could do a bit darker. I think I'm going to actually change this. It's just too matte, you can't see the little grips and things, so I think we'll go ahead and maybe texture map that as well. And then yeah, but right, so what I'm going to do is just tweak these paint effects for this, or show you different methods that we can use to sort of tweak it. Right, okay, so what else can we do with this paint effect that we've got here, this candy effect, this Fenx pass? Well, there's several things we can do. We can change the colour. So if I wanted it to be more of a blue colour, I could put a light blue in here, and then I could put a darker blue in for this, and if we look here you can see the sort of preview that you're getting. So we might want to come a bit into this colour, give it a nice blue colour, do a quick render of that. Okay, so that's given us a kind of blue effect, which is pretty good. But now we're going to have a look at how we can sort of up some of these settings. We've got down here we've got specular property, but if we come down we've got flake colour and flake weight. So these parameters are how many bits of the silver are actually in the actual paint. So we could up the flake rate to say 3, and you can see that it's starting to come through. Flake density, we could increase this to say, let's increase them all so you can see a massive effect on it. Flake scale, of course bigger or smaller, we'll make this 0.5. Actually, I'll make it smaller, put it 0.1 so it's smaller. Now let's have a look at this effect. This is what we had before. And this is what we've got now. So I don't know if you can see, but you can see these little variations. This is the flake. Obviously it's massive, should be really small, and it's to do with the size of the model basically. So if we reduce the size of the flake scales down, then it should be something a little bit better. So if I come down to my flake scale and put this on 0.1, I put my flake weight, I'll actually put this on 2, and flake density I'll up to 3. The strength for this I'm going to put on 0.3, just see it sort of happening in there. I might reduce this further to 0.05 to reduce it further there, and put the weight down to 1. It's not too much, so you can play around with these settings. Let me just change the colour to more of what I'm going to kind of go for, which is going to be a black and then a kind of lit colour of white, so a black and white, and I'll do a render out of that as well. And here we go. So it's given us a kind of more of a graphite type of look, which is what I wanted. But wouldn't it be cool if we could still use this paint, but do a ramp, so a gradient from black at the back to this graphite colour at the front. Well, we can do that, but we have to set the UVs out to be able to do that, which we can do, and I'll tell you why. We have to set the UVs out because the UVs at the moment are scrabbled, they're all over the place. What we're going to work with is the frame. Not worry about this, this will change. In fact, I'm just going to put this into a Lambert material, and then it's not going to confuse the issue. So I'll just put that in there. So we're just working with the frame. Now what we've got is, we look at the windows and come down to the UV texture editor. This is what we have at the moment. It's all over the place, stuff is crossing, not good. I mean, if I go out and I just lay these out, that's a bit better, but it's still all over the place. I don't know what that relates to. Is obviously must relate to this area down here, but don't even know where it is. So it's very messy. So it would be good to do a UV layout of this quickly. So this is what we got at the moment, which would be similar to yours. What I need to do is basically a planar mapper in the Z direction. So I'm going to go to create UVs, planar mapping, click the options box, make sure Z selected and project. Okay, so it's projected now. So if we have a look at our UV texture editor, I did actually crash there, so I just redid it. I had to just delete the history on the frame. I think that was causing problems. But as you can see, the frame now is perfect. The problem is, if I put something on it, it's going to show in reverse on the other side. But let's go to our procedure and hook in a map. In fact, I'm going to change this to another temporary material just to sort the UVs out, and then I'll come back and reapply that material to it. So for this temporary one, I'm just going to pick a Lambert here and just call it temp UV or something like that. And now I can go in and grab my file, which I think is on my desktop. I will make this available to you. I think I've already mentioned that there. So let's just hump up the repeat the UVs. I'll put this to 5. Put this to 5. So actually pretty good, pretty square. All of these. Round the other side, as you'll see, it. Let's turn my default lighting on. You'll see it's reversed because it's the back of it, and we're looking through. You can see it's stretched over here. So it'd be good to separate those two out. Just going to get the UVs here and just come down to this. A few little amends to be done. The one is to just bring this down a bit. That I think is a bit better. If I look at the model, you can see it's a bit squarer. But because I am ramping, I am setting a gradient from the back to the front of the bike. I don't really need to cut this down the middle, because my logos that I'm going to put on there, I'm going to use projections anyway, so I can just separate those out. But let's cut it down the middle anyway, just for argument's sake. So I'm going to select edges now, and we're going to zoom in and select the central edge round the whole bike. And in fact, it's a good idea to turn everything off apart from what you want, which in this case is the frame. Another good reason to make sure that everything's organised. Okay, that's good. I can make sure I can cut through all of this and make sure it's all through. And this is why when we were building the geometry, we would make sure that we had a centre line to work from, so it was easy to cut things through. From there. Through here. And that's good. Now of course I've got to also cut through here, because this won't break away otherwise. That's good there. Good there. That pump is in the way, but I think it goes right way through. Just check. Yeah, that's pretty good. Just need to grab this. That's the center line there. So this will cut this in half. Now of course I go to select and I go to convert, and I convert these to UVs. which will appear in here. Then I go to polygon and split the UVs, and now I'm hoping that if I click one of these UVs and come back in and select the shell, go to W, that it'll allow me to move it, which it does, which is great. So now I just need to check which side. Is this the wrong? Yeah, this is the right side. So I am on the right side for flipping. So in this case I'm going to flip it vertically like this. Yeah. I'm going to put this now into its position, and I think what I want to do is just to twist this to get it straight across here. I'm going to do the same for the other one. Select shell, just twist this so it's straight, move it up. If this checker's getting in the way, you can turn it off here. Sometimes find it gets in the way. What I'm trying to do is get it as close to each other as possible, making sure the angle is correct on each. That's pretty good. So now we split that down the middle. I can grab both of these. I can scale. Oh, do I need to scale? Yeah, I do slightly. Now there's something appearing here, but I don't think it's going to affect it. Okay, that's not bad. Move out. So what's going to happen when I apply the ramp, it will go from left to right, and of course it will be darker and then it will get lighter, but it will do it across the whole model at the same time, and because these are all lined up correctly, it will join correctly at the seams. If I do have a problem, I might have to cut these bars out and merge them together to lose the seam on there, but we might be alright with this. So if I have a look at it now, yeah, all our numbers are correct. Okay, so what I'm going to do is test the ramp out using the test Lambert material that we've got. Before I do that, I'm just going to save this scene, and I'm going to go to edit and delete by type history just to clear those nodes. And now I'm going to go into color, and I'm just going to click, I'm going to click here and break the selection. Now I'm going to click again, and I'm going to go into the ramp, which is here. Yeah, now that's looking good. Got a bit of a problem down there. Causing a few problems, but it's nice and clean. That's the main thing. Let's have a look at these UVs now, and we can see what's happening. So it's putting it diagonal from this side to this side, so we can use this as a guide. We can come into this and do a U ramp there. That should be fine. And now I will take this colour and I will make it a black. Yep. And I'll take this colour and delete it, and I'll take this blue colour and I'll make it a light grey. Let's have a look at our model now. So yeah, you can't see any visible differences on the seam there, and looks good. So I'm happy with that. So what I can do now is I can apply that to my material. So what I'm going to do is come to my hypershade. I'm going to reselect or apply that colour back on there. Wheel rims, where is it? Copper frame, there it is. apply to material. Okay, and now I'm going to come into here and I'm going to click the base color checker there. I'm going to apply the ramp. I'm going to take this ramp and make it a black. I'm going to take this one and make it a light grey, and I'm going to delete that one. And I'm going to go into this and choose that U ramp. So it's giving me a sample of what that looks like. And that's it for now. Let's have a look what happens. Right, so we've applied it only to the base colour. So we haven't applied it to the lit colour as yet. So I'll do a render of this. And there we go. So we got it going from dark to light. But using the lit colour, we can repeat these steps. So I'm going to go to ramp. I'm going to go to U ramp. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to, for this colour, I'm going to choose the black again. And for this front colour, I think I'm going to go to white, make it a bit lighter. Now we'll do a test render. So I'll just save this one off and we'll do a render here. So now, between the two, as you can see, it's a bit darker here, but it goes from dark to light. And that's the effect we wanted. These flakes are massive on here, so we'll do something about that straight away. We'll come back to this and I might actually plug this ambient into there as well. Yeah, I'm going to plug the ambient into the ramp, and ambient's going to hit more light, so it's going to appear darker at the back, which is what we want. And the front is going to, so literally there'll be no ambience at the back, and at the front there'll be a lot of ambience, so it'll show up more. So with that plugged in and with it turned to a U type, we'll render this one out. Okay, so now that's rendered out, you can see a much bigger effect, almost going to white at the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop this down a little bit, make it a bit grayer. It's a bit too much. If I render this out now, that's a bit better. There's just more of a difference there. So with that in mind, I now want to get rid of these flakes, make them a bit smaller. So I'll choose my material, I'll come down here and I'll go not to my reflection but to my flake weight, or my flake size, and I want to put 0.05 in here, reduce it right down. The density of the flakes I might actually bring up a little bit, and I'll have a flake, a little bit of decay on the flake of 0.002, something like that, so it decays off. And now, so we're looking at these little flake areas that you can see on here, hopefully you can see them, and I'm just going to render this, and they disappeared, but they're there. You still got the flakes, you still got this kind of pattern going on. So that's to add a ramp using the paint effects. So you can play around with different colours there if you want to. We can add a bit of colour into this lit colour. So let's add a little bit of colour and just see what that kind of does. So I'm going to add a little bit of this kind of blue in here, and this front one I'm going to add a little bit of lighter blue here, and just see what kind of effect we're going to get. Yeah, so you can see there it's added that little bit of colour that just makes it look a little bit different, you know. So play around with that, really good setting. And the last thing I want to do is to make sure all of these are kind of in the same position for the ramping. So actually I'm going to do these, I was going to do them the same colour as the frame, but I think what I'd do to add a little bit of interest is make them a chrome colour, or actually a copper colour. So you've got a lot of chrome going on, so let's just use the copper colour for this. So select these. There's a few more to be selected on the forks, but I think these are most of them. Okay, so I'm going to just go to my hypershade and I'm going to pick that that kind of silver copper colour that I've got there. Actually no, just the copper colour. You can change this if you like, it's up to you. So yeah, that looks nice. Just makes it look a bit different. Alright, let's do a render of this in as it is, and we can see how we're kind of progressing with it. Okay, so here it is. So as you can see, nice and sort of graphite down this area, coming up to a kind of silver at the front. So that's nice, and these little points sort of add a bit of interest on there. There's little copper areas. So now we've got to get the forks and this part of the handlebar into this front colour. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can use the same material, but we're going to have to map it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this frame, come into the UV texture editor, which we've got here, and I'm going to change things around. I need a bit of space, so I'm going to change things around a little bit here. I'm going to actually move this down a bit. Shouldn't affect anything, but it'll give me a bit of space. Because I'm only moving it down, it's not going to affect the ramp which goes from left to right. Yeah, and I'll prove that to you by just doing a quick render. Like that, so it's the same, yeah? So what I need to do is where my this front area, I need to put my forks into that area, so there will be a solid colour of that. Now this is a problem. In the mental ray you can't see the gradient going across. If I've got it based on a Lambert shader, then you can see the ramp as you saw earlier, but we can't see the ramp in here, so there's no visual indication. Another reason why I did it on the Lambert to start off with, to make sure everything was correct. And so I know from experience now that as long as I put my forks down this line here, then it will be the same colour as the front. And let's just prove that to you now. I'll take this and I'm just going to just click it here, and I'm going to do a Z, again a Z projection for it, but before I do that I'm just going to save it. I'm also going to kill off any history that's in here which could cause the program to crash, so I'm going to delete the history for that. I'm going to come into the planar mapping and I'm going to map it on the Z axis, which will just put it in like this. It's a little bit ski whiff, so I've got to just straighten it up, and I'm actually looking in here if you want to see what's going on. So you can see it there. It needs a little bit of twisting just to get it like that. That's not bad. So I'll now select my edges, sorry, my UVs, and I use this and I'll just bring it up a bit and I'll just scale it down. I want to add that to this, so I'm going to move it into position about there, so it's in line with this. Size really doesn't matter in this case, because it's not got anything on it, it's got no textures on it, it's just purely to get this position for the rest. So now that's in position, if I click my object and I now make it go to my hypershade again, and I now use that same material that we used for the frame, which was, where is it? There. I'll assign that to that material, so here we go. So frame, yep, assign to material. Now if I look at these, both these UVs selected, you can see they're now part of this set. And I could select these, output them and texture both these two objects at the same time on the texture map. And that's what you'll be doing when you get more advanced. You'll be adding lots of these objects to the same texture map and multiply texturing them together on the same map. And you'll also be creating spec maps and things like that, all from the one texture map. Especially in games where you're limited by a certain amount of texture maps that you can use. You might only be able to use 2 maps or something, or 3 maps of a certain size. One might be a spec map, one might be a normal or bump map, and one will be a texture map for any graphics or textures that you need to put on it. So with that done, let me just render this out and show you. I'll do before and after. See, it hasn't got it applied on this one, so I'll just save that and I'll just render. Right, so as you can see, there's my forks, there's my top, this is the same colour. And so do remember also that if I took this fork section, this front bit we just did, and I moved it to the back, it would then take on this darker colour, because the ramp, as I said, goes from left to right, even though you can't see it on here. And so I would say to you at this stage that all those areas that you want to be in these colours in the right position, I would do it all with the Lambert test shader, just to check that everything's working okay. And then I would so set all your UVs up, and then I would take it across and plug it into the mental ray paint pass that we just did. So that's that. So now I need this front fork section also turned into this colour. So we'll select that and we'll do that as well. So I'm going to select this and I'm just going to do exactly the same map that we did last time. I've got it on the UV, as you can see. I'm going to select my UVs. I'm going to grab these like this. I'm going to just sort of twist them and I'm going to reduce them down like this. Now I'm going to select the forks and this so you can see them. I'm going to use the move tool and I'm going to move it here. So again, it's in this line. Now I'm going to apply the material to it using the hypershade. So assign to material, and now that top frame will be part of that material in that using that ramp in the same position. So let's do a render of that and see how that looks. I'll just turn the bike a little bit so that we can see it more clearly. We'll do it like that. That makes it a bit more visible. Okay, let's render that out. Okay, so that's rendered. As you can see, this top, this piece here and this piece here are all exactly the same colour because they're all in that UV space. Now the other thing I've noticed is I'd like this graphite to run a little bit more up the frame. So I'm going to save this view and just show you how to shift it. So I'm going to take one of these, doesn't matter which one I take as long as it's this. And I'm going to come across to my base colour here. I'm just going to take this and just going to raise it up a bit. About there. Yep. Then I'm going to do the same for the ambient colour. Up a bit more, and in fact this I'm going to darken this down a little bit more. Okay, and we'll render that out. Okay, so there it is. So that's what we had before, and I just moved, by moving that up, it's just darkened it all down, which looks a lot better for a bike. I just think it was a bit too light there, a bit too light the chrome colour, so it was good to darken that up a little bit. Of course I could shift it even more if I wanted to. If you want the flakes to be a bit more prominent, then obviously play around with those settings. But that's it. And right, so it's missing decals, you know, a bit of detailing. So like I said before, I want to detail the seat next. and just put a sort of white line going around it, adds a bit more sort of life to it. So first thing we have to do with the saddle is to actually turn off all the layers, just to so that we can work comfortably with just one object. This looks like a grip. I'll add that to the grip layer. Okay, right, so we got this seat, and we just need to UV layout it. So what I'm going to do for a starting place is I'm just going to do an automatic mapping. I'm just going to click this options box, and I think I'm going to put 6 planes. I want less distortion, actually fewer pieces, and I just want to project, and this will show me the projections that I've got. Now if I come into my, not my outliner, into my UV texture editor, you'll see it's actually put all these pieces down here, which is good, but they're still a bit crazy. So I can see that this is going to be the top of the seat, so I quite like this piece. So what I want to do is just select the shell, which will give me the whole top piece. Yeah, and I just want to move this out the way. Now what I'm going to do is select the rest. Actually, I'm going to come down to the bottom and select UV there, and select this as a shell. I think this is the same here as well. I don't really care about the bottom too much, so I'm trying to just move these bottom pieces out the way. Now I'm going to select the faces, and I'm going to select across these, and that's not bad. Don't want this one. The rest is fine. Okay, so I'm just going to do a Z projection of this. So these are only these pieces that are selected here, so selected using the face tool, and I'm just going to do a Z project, which will be straight on here. So I'm going to go to my planar mapping, I'm just going to check that Z's on, and I'm just going to project, and this will give me the seat here. I'm now going to select the UVs for this and just move them down to get them to be more like the seat shape. And the rest of these pieces I'm going to just, this is the bottom pieces, so I can really just get them out of the way. These pieces I'm just going to move up. Now I have to be a bit careful because I've got a bump mat running over this, so if I have the seat at this size, it's going to cause a problem because this top part of the seat has got less texture area. So they're going to, these are going to be bigger, the bump map's going to be bigger on this surface than it is on this surface. So I have to bear this in mind when I'm working with it. Also, the other thing I want to do is I want to split it. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to select the middle area and I'm going to start to split it, and then I want to join it to the top of the seat. So I'm going to select edges here, and I'm just going to zoom in and just select these. That should be alright. I think that's this piece here, yeah, so I don't need that. Yeah, that's that piece there as well, so I don't need that. Control Z. So here we go. And here. And I think if I come any further over, let's just check. You can see it's appearing there. So I'm going to come back one there. Okay, that's good. Alright, so they're selected on there. So what I can do now is I can just split the UVs. Now I can select the UV, one of the UVs on here, and I can just go to select shell. I should be able to move that down. That's good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to flip this like this. Grab this and move it down. And I want to get this now, and I want to twist this about 90 degrees. So this is where I bring this right up so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to scale this. I'm going to press the W key and kind of try and bring it into position. And what I'm trying to do is match it with what we've got going on. I'm just going to move this shell out, so I'm going to select the shell, just move this up. Right, now what we're going to try and do is move and sew these edges. So what I need to do is select an edge, and you'll see that it's this edge, so I need to flip this completely over. So I'm going to select the UVs, I'm going to select the shell, and I'm going to flip it this way. Now if I go to the edge, you'll see that these edges line up. And what I'm trying to do is get them to sew themselves together so that it's seamless in that area. So I select all the way along there, then I simply go to move and sew UV edges, and I'll do the same this side. So you're basically combining them together, so it will give us one panel, which is what we want. And same again, move and sew the edges. Now we've got one piece, and it should be fairly accurate, or there shouldn't be too much distortion in it. And this is where I'll come back and check this with my UV map. Now I'm not worrying about the bottom, so I don't care about that. I'm just going to come into the material now, this blend free, and I'm going to select the checker box for the colour, and then I'm going to grab my good old checker, which is on my desktop. There it is. Open him up and have a look, and you can see it's quite good, but I do need to flip it round because this is wrong. So I'm going to select the shell, I'm going to flip it over, and now it's the correct way around, but we've got no horrible seams around here, and it's all quite square. So that's going to work perfectly for putting some texture on that map. So that's good. Right, so let's release that now, and let's go into the thing again. I'm going to just select this, and I just want to save this just in case it crashes. Now I'm going to delete the history on it. Okay, back to the blend. Now I'm just going to break this connection. That's good. Bring this back down to the black. Right, so it basically means I now can run some stripes down these sides following this, which will follow nicely this kind of crease, and that should look quite nice. So what I need to do is just to select my UVs like this, go to UV snapshot, and produce this for the seat. So I'm just going to call this seat out UV. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to come back into Photoshop, and so we're going to add those stripes. So I'm just going to open this up, go to my actually my images folder. Seat UV, there it is. Okay, so the same bit as before, double click this, layer 0, the adjustments, we go to invert. I'm now going to create this new layer here, and we're going to use that as a reference. So what I want to do is create a kind of stripe that kind of goes down the side. Sorry, I'm just thinking what tool I'm going to use. I'm not used to doing these sort of graphics just in Photoshop. Alright, I think the first thing I'm going to create a new layer here and just choose a dark kind of colour. Something like this. I'll fill that in there, drag this down below, turn this one, make it multiply, so that's the seat layer, so you can just about see it. In fact, I'll lighten this up just in case you can't see it. Put it in there, just lighten that up, there we go. So I'm on this top layer, this blank layer now. I'm going to pick the pen tool here and I'm going to zoom in a bit and just kind of try and draw out a kind of cool thing going on. Okay, that's quite nice. Let's drop a white in here. I think it's because my tolerance is too low for this. Maybe. Yeah, there's my work path. So I make a selection. So sorry about that. Yeah. Right, let's just select all. So Control A, just get rid of this white area. There, if you go into paths there, we should be under Windows paths there. Just click that, right hand click and make selection, and just click OK to the defaults. Come back into the layers, again Windows layers, yeah, and just fill it with the white. So I've got the white selected, I'm just going to drop that in there, deselect. I'm going to zoom out, have a look at it. It's a bit all over the place, but you get the idea. Just going to use this polygon tool here. I'm going to turn feather to 0 and just start to just take this edge piece off. Like that. Come over here and just delete that out. That looks a bit better. Right, so spend as long as you like putting more features on here if you like, and I'm going to just duplicate this layer. So I'm just going to duplicate, I'm going to go to edit, transform, flip vertically. That'll give me a mirror copy on the vertical. Now I just need to come up and put this in roughly the same position. Whoops, I'm on the wrong layer. Roughly the same position as I've got the other one, which is about there. I might need to rotate it as it's not perfectly square. So I'm coming in about there and ending about there. That's about right. Okay, that's quite good. Okay, so I'm going to turn this layer off, and I'm just going to drop a very dark black in here, and we'll put that in there like that. So it's a black seat. I'm going to then go into filter, and I'm going to add a slight bit of noise. Click OK. It does make a difference. It's really hard to see, but it makes a big difference. And so now I'm going to save this as in my source images, seat text, and I'll save this as a JPEG. That's fine. And I'm also just going to save this because I want to keep it as my seat. So it's in images, seat UV out. That's good. Click OK. Remember, I could apply a bump map in here if I wanted to, put my own textures in there instead of using the default one. So if you want to do that, create your own bump map, you just need to select the blend, and where it's bump mapping, to get rid of this you just need to break the connection, yeah, and then do exactly the same as we did for the tyre. Okay, so now we've got that selected, I want to just add that texture to the colour. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to locate my texture for this, which is in the bike, in source images, and then it's seat texture, and I'm going to click OK. And now, as you see, we've got this cool little band running through it that just adds a little bit of extra, and you got the noise on there as well, just adds a little bit of extra coolness to it. So let me just do a render of the seat alone. Right, for some reason it's not picking it up. I don't know why. I think it might do if once I have all the settings in place. Yeah, I'll tell you, that's why I haven't got the lights turned on, because I turned them off. So I think that's what's causing that. So I'll just turn everything back on again, and we'll do another render with the seat in position. Yeah, I do actually want to make sure that this is the seat texture. So I think I might have turned it into the Lambert texture. Yeah, that's alright. Okay, let's have a look at that. Okay, we'll do a render of this. Okay, so there it is, and as you can see it's got that little graphic, plus it's got bump mapping running through it as well, so as we use the bump mapping method. But you might want to set up the seat bump maps like we did for the tyres. Gives you a bit of control, then you don't have to do it over the top of the white, and you can keep it nice and sharp there. So, and also the colour of it is just catching the light a little bit too much, so I'm going to just go into the settings and just change a few of the settings within this. The diffuse I'm going to bring down a little bit. I'm also going to take, if you click here you can see a view of it. I'm going to bring the specularity down, and I think I want to bring eccentricity down, but put specular roll off a little bit higher. I think that will darken the seat down a bit. I'm just going to do an IPR render of this area. That's much better. It's much darker, but it's still catching the light, and we can still see that bit of detailing as well. Just knocks it on. As I said, for the handle grips, I also want to set up a material for them as well, because at the moment you're not catching this lovely sort of grip stuff that I built into the geometry. You'll see it if we're really close up, but from this distance you can't really see it. So I want to set the grips up for this. Now, as they are duplicates, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one from the end, and I'm just going to choose this one. I'm going to now come into a blend shader, and I'm going to call this blend grips. This will be my grips shader, obviously, And now what I want to do is to dial this back down, bring the specular roll off and the eccentricity down a little bit, and I'm now going to UV map this because I want to put some little lines around it. So I'm going to come into my UV texture editor, and as you can see at the moment we've got no UVs for this, but I'm going to create, as it's a cylinder, I'm going to create some cylindrical mapping. So I've clicked it there, I've clicked the W, yeah, then I've clicked that little blue thing around the outside, which will allow me to move this around. Now at this point I'm just going to get rid of this out of the way and come over here. I'm going to do the projection sweep as we did before to 360 right the way around it. So now it's looking quite nice. Yeah, I'm now going to come into this area. I'm going to select the UVs like this. I'm going to select the shell. I'm going to hit R on the keyboard for scale. I'm going to scale this down. And I'll move it over here. No particular reason. And now I'm going to just put my checker map on it again, just to check. So where's he? Desktop checker map. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't come across, it's really annoying there. I've probably applied that to something else now. This seems to have got bump mapping. Let's break this. Right, come across to this. File and checker. Okay. Repeat these. As it's quite small, I'll make it 10. Right. Okay, so we've got to expand this a bit because it's taken it and flattened it all out. That's quite nice. Yeah. So I'm not worrying about this very end part here. But if I wanted to separate this out, what I could do is just this. Just grab these areas here. I'll do it quickly, then you can see. Like that. And then I would do a planar map in the Z, because we're on the Z again, and project that out. And as you can see, it's now appeared in here. I could select the UVs for that and reduce those down, but you'll see it's nice and sharp, or nice and square there at the ends. So that's about right, and we'll put that there. Okay, so I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to do a UV snapshot. I'm going to call this grips, and I'm going to click OK. I'm going to come into Photoshop. I'm just going to close this down and I'm going to open up my new grips out UV. That's this one. Now this one really simple. I'm just going to put a few little kind of lines and things on it. So really easy. I'm just going to put a few little lines about this far over. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to pick a red like this. Then I'm going to create a new layer again. And actually, I'm sorry, I'll delete that layer. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this layer, press Ctrl D just to deselect it and move this, and now I'm going to use the edit button and use the free transform just to bring this down, go to move and click apply. Now we've got a thinner line running through it, rather like we've got for the tyres, so it should look quite neat. Then in this layer, then I'm going to merge this onto this layer, and finally I'm going to create a new layer here, which I'm going to put the grip colour into, which in this case is going to be a very dark grey, that sort of colour. And then I'm just going to drop that into there and save this out. So I'm saving as JPEG inside of my source images. So grip out, and I just call it TEX for that, and click that and click OK. And am I going to save this? No, because it's very simple to redo it if I have to. But you might want to put more detailing on that than me. So now I'm going to come back into this, select this, and I'm going to go back into my colour, and this time I'm going to select the source images and my grip texture. Click OK. Right, funny enough, I've got funny things happening. That's because I've taken the setting from the checker map, and as you know, the checker map had 15 or 16 settings placed in the UV repeats. So I need to reset this to 1. So it's kind of good that happened. There you go. Now it's in the right position, as you can see from the text, the UV texture map there. It's because I duplicated it. So that makes it look a bit jammy. So now what I can do is I can select that, make sure that my pivot point is on the center line. Yeah, we covered this in the polygon modeling course. There it is in the middle line. So now I can go to edit, and I can check the checkbox on duplicate special, make sure -1Z is put in there, and then just duplicate special, and then you'll see it will duplicate over to the other side and take on all the characteristics of the texture map and the materials. Right, so that's getting there. So a bit of colour there to sort of bring it up. I was going to do the cabling for this, but I think for speed, all I'm going to do is put this into this chrome colour, which we got kind of going on around here. So I'm going to select my hyper shade and just apply the material there. Okay, so this kind of just leaves us left, I think, with adding some reflectors on the pedals and sorting out this Shimano gear system, and then putting our decals on the frame, and then we're finished. So let me just do a quick render of this to see how we're progressing. Before I render, I'm just going to save the scene, and at this stage I'm then going to save the scene as, and I'm going to put it down as bike texture 2. Okay, let's do a bigger render of this. So I'm going to click my options, make sure my quality is in the production. Yep, and set this to 1200 by 900. Click OK, and move that. That's quite a nice view. And render that. Okay, so this is rendered out now. Let's have a look at that. And there he is. So the seat, the grips are quite nice. We can see now the ribbing on there, and yeah, it's definitely coming on. So you can see it definitely needs some reflectors in here, and it'll also highlight them a little bit better as well. And then we need to work on this area here, and then we need to put the decals on the side. Other than that, it's going to be finished. Okay, so moving on, now you can see that I've added a logo onto the frame here. Now originally I was going to use projections to project the image onto this material, but it's a bit long-winded, so I decided just to do a texture map of it and put it in position, which I'll show you now. So we know how to get the texture map out. You've just got to go to, let me just close this down. We just got to select our frame and go to our UV texture editor, which will then give us the frame that we created, which is here. We'll just reduce this down, and of course add to it, so you can add these pieces to it as well, which were added. Now I did sort of resize it a little bit and get it more into a better position for me. Then of course I select the UVs and like that, so I right click and UVs, and then I go into UV snapshot, same as we did before. Save that out to a location that you can see, and then open it up in Photoshop. Now something to bear in mind here, where the frame, you can see these little rounded points coming in, and this is basically for the smoothing that we applied to it. If you watch this now, when I click this frame and press 1 on my keyboard, watch these curved points, they straighten up. So I would suggest that you be careful of that, because where you have the smoothing, such as here, if you run text over it, it's going to go all over the place. Now I'll prove it to you by just turning this into our test Lambert that we use for our testing, which we created earlier, which is over here, and here he is, our Lambert test. Temp UVs, so assigned to material. Okay, so let's have a look. Alright, this is with the smoothing on, and if we zoom in on these pieces, look, they really sort of go a little bit mad. They're okay down here, which is why I put the Trek logo down there, but if you were going to make sure that this is all evenly spaced, then you would need to play around with the UVs to get them all to be a bit more smooth. So you need to come in here and just basically play around with these UVs, this one in particular. Now watch the screen. I'll just UVs deselect. No, this one will be better because he's this side, and I use the move tool. I'll just kind of move him, kind of straighten him up a bit, or select them all. And you get the idea. Try and straighten them up. But for this we don't really need to, because it's fine. So once I'd exported my, because I'm going to put the logo down there, so once I exported my UV, go back a couple here just to put it back into that material, make sure nothing's changed. Okay, I exported, I opened it up in Photoshop, and you can see our UVs there. And what I did was I applied that gradient. So I just, you can see I've got a gradient layer here. For this layer I inverted it. This is the UV out. I remember I double click on it to make it layer 0 so I can drag it to the top. And then I just went to image adjustments and I inverted it, and then I put it into a multiply so that it would show on top of my gradient. And I created a new layer there, and I just double clicked the gradient, which is up here, and made it black to this grey, and then I dragged it across like that. Well, no. Make sure that you drag it across evenly from this side, hold the shift key and drag and release, because we want, if we do it unevenly, then there will be a line where the UVs hit each other. So then what did I do to get this logo? Well, I just went on the internet and typed in Google under images high-res Trek logo, Trek bike logo, and then I got this big image here, which I then just did a few little modifications to. I resized this, so I just separated this out, duplicated this layer, and I just cut this out and scaled and resized it as you've done before. And this Trek logo I converted it to white. Now how did I convert it to white? I'll show you. I had this logo like this, and all I do is go down to image and invert, and it will turn to white. Okay, and then I cut this badge out and just resized it as we've done in the past. So then I put that logo in position there, and then the next thing I need to do is just to merge it down. Then I do a duplicate of this layer like this. I go to edit, I go to transform and flip vertically. But as you can see, I've got to do a couple of other little things. I've got to just, that's why I shouldn't duplicate this layer. So I'm going to duplicate that layer. So I'll turn this one off so it's clear what I'm doing. So I've got a duplicate. The badge is fine, and I want that badge in the same position on both sides. I'm going to use the polygon selection tool, just click, 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 and click again. Once that's done, I'm going to cut that out, so I'm going to backspace or delete. I'm going to turn this off, come down to this layer, I'm going to press Ctrl-Shift-I to inverse the selection. As you can see, it's now inverse, so when I cut it out, it will cut this badge out. So I just delete that out by the backspace. Now I need to just invert this or flip it round. So I need to go to edit again, and I need to go free transform and flip. Oh, I need to invert the selection again. So Ctrl-Shift-I. Go to my edit, transform and flip horizontally. Now I can bring the badge back, which I've got there, and with that still selected I can do free transform and transform that so it's level. Needs bringing up, so I'm just using the arrow keys here just to bring this up, and then I apply it here, then I deselect. So I've got that in position on both sides. In fact, it needs to be nudged a little bit forward, so I'm just selecting around it. I'm going to use the move, and I'm going to use the arrow keys just to kind of move it a bit closer so the distance is about the same. Yep, and press Ctrl D to deselect. Okay, so finally I want to export this back into Maya, so I'll turn this off and export it. Before I do that, I think I'm going to put a few badges on the side and stuff just to give it a bit more life. Remember, you can draw little lines on here and things, but do be careful about that UV problem that we could have with the smooth. So I'll duplicate this and select Ctrl-I, Ctrl-Shift-I to inverse my selection. I can turn that off. I just have the badge now. I can use the edit tool and free transform, and I can transform this down and move him. Zoom in, pressing Ctrl plus, and I'll just move him. I'm being careful of this, see where it's straping down. I don't want that in there. So obviously if you were going to get this so that it's nice and smooth, you'd have to spend a bit more time on the UVs, but you know the procedure for it, so play around. Free transform this so it's the other way around, and move this up into position. Yeah, that's pretty good. I might put a few little white bits in here as well. Just going to merge all these layers down so everything's contained on the same layer. I'm going to create a new layer, and just to give it a little bit of energy, I'm going to sort of take this and just put a white in there. It will just break the bike up a little bit more. I'm going to just free transform this to try and get the same angle. So I want want to come 90 degrees into this frame kind of thing. Bring it down a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to duplicate this layer and bring him here. Just free transform him down a little bit. Might need to zoom in here. Just zooming in. Deselect. I'm going to merge this down onto this layer. So just that's, and I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm just going to flip it vertically. So now, Control minus to shift out. I'm going to bring it, oh, wrong layer. Bring this down here. I'll just check that this is in alignment. Yep, using the rules at the side. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so I've turned this layer off, and I'm just going to save as, pick a JPEG, come in my source images, name it frame text, frame underscore text JPEG, and save that. I'm replacing actually, but then I'm going to save this image out as my frame, just in case I want to add more to it. I can come back into Maya now, and I've already got him loaded, but what you would do is you would go to material, you would go to the base color, click that tag, load in your frame, yeah, and that should be there. So I'll just do a quick render of that, and we can see how that looks. That side as well is a good idea, but let's do a render of this. Okay, so as you can see, it's rendered out nicely. Got these lines through here, got the little badge on there and round the side. So what do we do now? Well, we could actually set maps up for all of these, like the edge color. We could set maps up for the lit color, and the ambient color as well. In fact, the ambient, I'm going to link to that as well. Now we've got a ramp, but we don't need the ramp because we've got the gradient within the texture file. So let's go back and break this connection, this ambient connection. So I'm going to break this, and I'm just going to tie it straight into that map that we just did, and that will then bring it to life a little bit more. And as you can see from this image, we've still got the blue coming through from the actual paint effect which we've got in here. See this blue? I'll up this a little bit more. I've actually got it tied into a ramp, so what I'll do is I'll break the connection from the ramp that we've got there, and I'll just pick a brighter blue, something like this, and now we'll do a render. I'll save this just for viewing. And so remember, we've tied in that texture that was there, we've tied it also, the same texture map, into the ambient, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so here it is. So you can see that I've put that brighter blue in now. I really like that. So I'm not gonna create a ramp. I'm gonna leave it as this solid light blue, which is catching really nicely along the edges. But you can see we've got a problem there. That badge just looks awful. So because it's distorting because of the smoothed UVs. So we could break this away and do it that way, or we could just simply move it down. Now I noticed that I've got these bits going around, so maybe this wasn't a good location for this badge anyway. So I'm thinking about just removing it. So I think I'll just remove it. So I'll show you quickly how to remove it. We'll go back into our map here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete from this layer. I'm just going to delete that badge out. Now don't worry, you might think, oh, you know, you're not covering the fact that the UVs aren't straight, so I can't work on it. Because what I intend to do is at the end of this course, I intend to carry on and just show you more about projecting in particular, and about UV layouts and how you can break this frame up further and give yourself much better results. So I'll cover that at the end of this lesson and just show you how you can cut through these things, but for now we just want to get this bike wrapped up. So now I've deleted those, I can save this back out. So I'm going to save as again. I'm going to come into my source images folder and I'm going to save it as JPEG again and as frame underscore texture. Replace that. Now to be able to reload that image in really quickly, what we can do is we can select the frame, make sure that you're in the right material, come in here and just hit reload. Now because I've got it in the other one as well, the base colour, I need to reload it into that one. And now when I come to render this out, I'll just do a quick IPR render on that area. You'll see that it will disappear. As you can see, it's now disappeared. So I'm happy with this. I think it looks good. Is there anything else we need to change? I need to add the reflectors to this area. So I'll just show you that quickly, and this will be quite easy to show you. Right, what I'm going to do first of all is just get rid of all my objects apart from my pedals. I'm going to leave the lights on, just put them into reference mode. I'll turn the pedals off at the moment, I'll turn them back on. Okay, pedals, there we go. Alright, now I'm going to select both of these pedals. Actually, I'm going to select one of the pedals. I'm going to get this pedal and I'm going to delete it. I'm going to grab this pedal. I've still got my curves turned on. I need to turn, I don't know what's going on there. These are redundant things. It looks like it's a bit of the cable. Just add them to them. These look like curves, so let's add them to them. Just to get them out the way. I don't know what that is. I think it was a projection node that I was playing around with. So I'm going to grab the pedal. I'm going to go to Windows and to UV texture layout. I'm going to come in here and have a look at the UVs for them. And in actual fact, they're not too bad. And I'm thinking, shall I cut it out of there or shall I create brand new pieces? I think I'm going to create brand new pieces. It will keep everything simple. So let me just duplicate that back in. Yeah, I just moved it out a bit, just looked a bit wrong, a bit close to the pedal part. Okay, so let's just quickly model in a couple of bits. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm not going to need this back face, so I'm going to delete that back face out. And I'm just going to do it so it's really thin, like this. And scale it roughly down. I'm just going to turn my default lights on using default lighting, and I'm going to move it up and get it into position. I'm going to come into this one. I'm jumping around, I'm just pressing the space bar here. I'm going over one of these and pressing the space bar. I'm going to zoom in here. Give me an approximation of where this is and the height of it in particular. Okay, that'll do. If I go to smooth shade, wireframe on shaded, you can see that I can now see my point. Back in there, back in there. Okay, now I can get this to the exact size I need it. Just inside of here. A little bit. Press the R key, I'm just gonna, that's not bad. Top view, pressing F to zoom in. Now I'm going to have a look at it on this pedal. Do again in a bit more. Wireframe unshaded there. Okay, that's good. Alright, now at this stage I'm going to UV it, because then I can split it out. So what I want to do is I want to UV this on the X direction. So I want to go to UV, and the reason I'm just looking at this, I can see it's in the X direction. Just like if I was this direction or this direction, I'd know it was in the Z. If I was up here, I know it was in the Y. So pretty simple. Sometimes people struggle with that. So I'm on the X, I'm just going to project. Yeah, now if we look at our UV texture editor in here, go to Windows UV texture editor, we can see that it's put it in there, but it's out. I'm going to go to UVs here. I know that that's the top, as you can see, my UVs. So I want to grab them all and I'm going to bring them all down. I don't care about the sides because you're not really going to see it. It's going to be red anyway, so you're not really going to see it that clearly. Now at this stage I'm going to put this into my lovely test, which is this one. So I'm going to assign that to material there. That will allow us to see this, as you can see, nice and square, perfect. And now the reason that I didn't do the other plates is because I'm going to use this as a base. So I'm going to press Ctrl D to duplicate. I'm now going to press E, and I'm going to rotate it around the Y-axis like this. As you can see, the Y-axis going up, but I'm going to translate it 180 degrees. Now I'm going to press the W key and I'm going to move it through and into position on the other side like that. Okay, now I'm going to come into my UV texture editor. Whilst that's still selected, I'm going to press the UVs and then I'm going to move this down. Now if I select the other one, as you can see, they've both appeared in there. So I'm going to do exactly the same with this one, although I need to scale it. I'm going to press Ctrl D, I'm going to press R on the key, E on the keyboard, and I'm going to translate it around the Y-axis 90 degrees, like so. I'm going to press the W key, bring the blue, bring it forwards, get it into position, bring it across. Now I need to scale it, so I'm pressing the R key and I'm just going to bring this in. You might need to just jump into another view, something like this. As you can see, I can see my edges there. Press the W key. Nice. And now these are this needs to be scaled down. So I've got my UV texture editor. I'm going to go to UVs. I'm going to press the R on my keyboard and just bring it down to square. I'm going to bring it right down there, and I'm just going to select all of these and just check they're all in position nicely, which they are. So that's good. And finally, I'm going to select them all, which I just did, and I'm going to select the UV, select across them, and do a UV snapshot. And for this one, I'll just call it reflectors. Save that out. Now I come back into here, I can close this, save it first, come into open, into my images, grab my reflectors, here they are, double click this background, come up to image, adjustments, invert, create a new layer, drag that layer below this, make this top layer, which is this one, the UV layer, turn that into multiply. Then I'm going to pick a red for this, something like that, and I'm going to drop that red in there. I'm going to create a new layer now and start to create my reflector texture. Right, there's loads of reference on reflectors, but I'm going to go for the one I've got on my bike, which is kind of hexagonal, and also it's kind of amber as well, so I need to change this to amber. If you're doing reflectors for the back of the bike, then you know, just do it red, use the modelling techniques. So what we need to do is to create some hexagons or some polygons. So I'm going to come down here to the polygon tool, which will give me what I need. Come into my blank layer, I think I want this six-sided hexagon. I'm doing it nice and big at the moment, and I want to come into my paths now and make a selection, come back into my layers, create a new layer, yeah, turn that layer off for now, and I'm going to go and pick something a bit lighter like this. I'm going to use the paint bucket, I'm just going to drop it in there. I'm going to duplicate up. Now, we did this before with the treads, so I think you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate, just going to leave a bit of space between it. I'm going to press Ctrl E to merge these two down, cancel, like that. And in fact I'm wrong here, I need to I've merged it down. I'm just going to use the tool here to just move this. What I want to do is move it here, trying to form a hexagon type pattern, like a honeycomb. So I'm going to duplicate this layer now and move him across, so hopefully about the same distance. And I'm going to duplicate him down. Now the reason I'm not merging at this point is I want to check that it's all going to fit. It's all going to work, which it does. Okay, so I'm now going to merge down. Control E, Control E, duplicate again, and keep building out. Let's just merge this down. I'm going to now just reduce the size. Ooh. Free transform, something like that. I'm using a space bar to just move my page, and slowly but surely you kind of build it up. Once you've got that, you then resize it down again until you get it about the size that you need it, which will be about this size, I think. Okay, and finally just one at the end. Like that. Okay, so that should be plenty to do. Okay, right, what I need to do now is just to select across and just delete stuff I don't need. So I'm pressing Ctrl-Shift-I to invert the selection, and I can delete that out. Now I can press the Ctrl-D to stop that. I can duplicate this layer and start bringing these up. Like this. Duplicate again, bring up. Oh, I'm going to merge these down. Ctrl-E, Ctrl-E. And I want a little kind of pattern going on in here, so what I can do is choose the layers, and I can just stroke these layers, maybe with 1 pixel, with a kind of darker colour. Something like that. And you can, if you want, add a little bevel to them. Now they'll look quite nice. Right, so I just need to create a kind of framework for them. So I'm going to pick this top layer, and I'm going to use the magic wand. I'm just going to come in here. I'm now pressing the Shift key as I'm clicking with the magic wand. Make sure your tolerance is set on something low, like 2. Then I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to fill that layer. Doesn't really matter what layer, what you fill them with, because we'll be creating a border around them. So deselect. Now I'm going to come into layer style. Layer style, I'm going to come down to stroke, and I'm going to up this a little bit, and I'm going to go inside. Okay, that's nice. And then I'm going to pick a kind of darker colour for the very edge. And I'm going to click OK. Now what I need to do is I need to get rid of the green, so I'm going to take the fill and bring that down to 0. Now I'm going to create another layer because I want to get rid of the stroked effect. So I'm creating a blank layer, and then I'm going to take that layer, the green layer at the top, this one, and put it onto this blank layer. So I'm going to press Ctrl-E. The reason I did that means that I can now have access to the layer settings again, and it's not going to be affected by the green. So if I go to layer style and I just go to bevel and emboss, you'll see that it will bevel it, which means that I can add these extra pieces. I could also add a slight drop shadow if I wanted to, just to give it a little bit more variation. Okay, with that done, I can turn off this layer now, which is my UV layer. Don't need this anymore, and I can just save this as a JPEG for the reflectors. So reflectors, JPEG, images, source images, and save that out. And okay, and you could use this as a base for a bump map as well if you wanted to. If you wanted to bump map the reflectors, I don't want to. They're quite small. Don't need anything going on them. But now what I'll do is I'll set up a colour for these now. So I'm just going to come into renderings. I'm just going to grab a blend colour, and I'm going to assign that to these objects. And then I'll just plug in my map that we just created. So the blin is down here. I'm going to right hand click and assign to material. So this will go into a grey now. I can turn these off. Go into my blin and I can go into my colour and I can just grab the reflector. And there we go, we've got the reflectors in there now. Now with this I can come down and just click this just to make specular roll off a bit higher on these colours, and reflectivity right up as well. And I'm also going to add a little bit of incandescence, just lights it up a little bit. Okay, so with that said and done, I'm going to take these three and I'm going to go edit mesh and combine them. Oh, whoops, yeah, you've got to be careful of that. Sorry about that, don't do that, just group them. So Control G and just group them. Okay, and this group I'm going to call reflectors. Reflectors. Okay, so with those selected now, if you deselect them you'll find that there'll be a group in here called reflectors, which I want to put in the pedals. So I'm going to put this in pedals here. Okay, so it's part of the pedals. I'm then going to select the reflectors and I just want to invert them across. So I'm going to press the move tool. It is in the center already, so I don't need to move it. I'm going to duplicate special, they'll appear on the other side. Then I can just move them into their relative position. At this point I'm going to move the center the pivot point as well. And I'm going to zoom right in and make sure that these are all where they should be. That's pretty good. And I'll just double check them. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, and you'll see that in Outliner they'll be under their pedals, but they'll be labelled reflector 1, which is fine. You can label them left or right if you want to. Okay, so with that done, we'll now turn all my bits back on and do another render. Just going to turn the wireframe on shaded off. Okay, so it's rendered out now, so have a look at it. And you can see the reflectors are in there, just a bit too much reflection on them, need to knock them down a bit. But basically that's it. So like I said, using techniques that we've discussed in this course about UV unwrapping and texturing, you should now be able to UV map, these are simple planar maps, and add some texture to all these gears, all the links, which will take a while. I suggest you select the whole chain and do a Z direction planar map of it, and then start breaking away the individual parts, the bits at the back, separated, and adding a bit of texture to them as well. So I think the last thing we've got to do now is this Shimano gear at the back. It's going to be quite simple. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. You've got the idea. And I tend to cover more of this after this kind of course part is finished. So let's have a look at this gear bit at the back here, which we've got. We got this and we got this. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to create UVs. I'm going to automatically map them. So So yeah, I'm going to automatically crash them. So I'm going to automatically map them. I'm going to go to create UVs and automatic mapping, and I'm going to individually select these. I suggest you individually select them because you do get sometimes it will crash on you. In good old Maya 2012, as it has again. Okay, so we'll try again to just get in here and UV unwrap this section. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the history. I'm going to put this into one mode, both of these into one mode, and I'm going to delete the history for these as well. I think it's always a good idea. It can throw some errors if you don't. So what I want to do is I just want to do a simple automatic mapping. All I care about is this little front face here. The rest I don't really care about, so I'll sling it wherever on my UV map and just concentrate on that little area where I'll put the logo in. So I'm going to do an automatic mapping for that. So if we have a look at that now inside of our UV texture editor, bring it down a bit so you can see it. These are all the pieces, obviously. Select the UVs and you can see on the screen that all the UVs are selected. But I want to separate a little bit of this, so I'm just going to select the faces here, 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 here and here, because that's the bit that I'm going to map. And I want to map it in Z, so I'm going to select this and say Z and project, and that will give me that little area which is UV'd, and I'll just select the UVs for it and don't worry about the others, just move it out of the way. Take all these and reduce them right down really small and select the shell here. So selected one of the UVs, select shell, move it back, and this is the angle, so my Shimano is going to run at this angle. So if I look at this, this will be these two here. So it's going to run across it here. So I'm going to keep it at this angle. I'm going to select the shell again and I'm just going to reduce this down. Okay, now I want to combine on this same map, I want to combine this as well. So temporarily, just get everything out of the way, I'm just going to select all these units and just move them over here. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to automatically map that as well. It needs to be in object mode, UVs and automatic. So we've got them there, which is nice, and they're quite well organized as well, which is always nice. Again, reduce these down, press the key. There's not going to have anything on these, so you can put stuff on them if you want to. I'm not going to for this tutorial. Make sure you're in object mode again, keep doing that. Automatic map that, select the UVs and reduce this down and move it over here. Okay, now I'm going to select all of these units and just going to start to bring them in. So I'm going to go into UV here and just move these down here, move them up into the UV space, grab these, move them here, and our most important one we're going to put here. And it's nice and big so that we've got lots of mapping area, lots of texture space on that area. So there you go, we've combined on the same, we're using the same map which we could texture up all these bits individually, and we've got 3 objects there all on the same texture map. So what I'm going to do is select them all, go to UV snapshot, make sure it's a 2048, click OK, overwrite existing, doesn't matter about that, and save it. Okay, so now I'm going to go into Photoshop and I'm just going to put Shimano logo across here, and then we'll just colour it up as well. So I think I want to go for a kind of maybe a kind of white colour so it kind of stands out. Okay, let's open it up in Photoshop now. So it's going to be in my images and it's the out UV here. Going to come into the layers tab there, which you can find under Windows layers, and double click that just to make it layer 0. I'm now going to come into the image. I'm going to go to adjustments and do the old invert. I'm going to put the mode into multiply, then I'm going to come down, create a new layer, drag that layer underneath layer 0 and double click and find a nice colour for my gearing area. So a nice white. Ooh, that's not really that white. Let's go into a cleaner colour. There you go. It's a bit lighter. In fact, I think I'm going to put it into a very light grey. Okay, so now I'm going to go on the internet. I'm going to Google up Shimano and high-res Shimano logo and grab a Shimano logo and shove it in this area. So doing a Google search now. I'm just going to hit the Google search and see what it gives me. Any Shimano logos? There it is. That's a good one. So let's look at the size. It's high res. 1024 by 768. That's going to be plenty big enough. Right. So now I've got it in there. I'm going to right hand click and copy the image. I'm going to come into here and I'm going to hit Control V to paste it. Now I want to get rid of the white, so I'm going to select here. I'm going to make sure that my tolerance actually is lower than that. I'm going to put it on 32. So I'm going to deselect again. Make sure the tolerance is on 32. Select that, and then we're going to go to select and go similar, and then I'm going to hit the delete. So we've deleted it there. Now I'm going to go into my free transform and I'm going to transform this. Now remember, I want to go with this kind of flow across here, so that's quite nice, and we'll put that in there. Now I'll turn this off. It should all be in position now, and I'm just going to save this as, and we'll save it as a JPEG. We'll come up to our source images and type in here Shimano and click save. Okay, and while I'm at it, I'm going to find out what that colour is. It's 10% grey. If I double click it, you can see it's 10% grey. If I open this up, it gives me the settings for it, and that's 235, 235, 235. Now I'm making a mental note of that. 235, 235. So this is saved. Now I want to save the Photoshop file of this. So let me just cancel this and save this as Shimano back in my images, so that I've got all my PSD files I can always get back to. Okay, back into Maya now. Let me just close this down and my browser. Just pull out the wireless there. Okay, so right now I'm going to right hand click. I turn the wireless off because I don't want it doing any updates or anything when I'm using my 3D software. It's more likely to crash. It crashes enough anyway. So now I'm going to make this into a, I think what I'll do is I'll actually make it into one of those flake colours. So it's got a bit of white flake colour. So I'm going to come across to my hypershade again, and I'm going to pick one of the MII Carpate Fen passes, and I'm going to assign that. There's not a lot of room, so I'm going to assign that to this. So it's selected. I'm just going to go assign to there. Yep. And I'm going to change the attributes for this a little bit. I don't want it to be this. I want it to be a kind of white colour, and I want the lit colour to be white. So actually going to darken this down a little bit more, and I'm also going to then plug my base colour into it. So I've gone to File, into that base colour, and now I'm looking for that Shimano, which is there, and you can't see it, but he's actually on there. And what we'll do is we'll also put him under ambience again, like we did last time for the frame. So Shimano again, And now I'm going to do a quick render out and see what this looks like. But before I do that, I'm just going to press 3 on the keyboard and just soften these back down again, and we'll just do a render. Right, okay, you can see it's here, but it's really white, but we've got no environment in here, so it will darken with the environment, and it's quite nice as a white, but I'm going to darken it down a little bit more. So I'm going to go back into my Photoshop file, and I'm going to pull in a darker grey. Okay, and I'm going to drop that in here. I'm going to just whoops, it's on the wrong layer. I'm going to put it in there. I'm actually going to add a little effect to this as well. So I've got this Shimano, and I'm going to add a little effect. I'm going to add a little glow to the outside, just to give it a little bit of bang. I'm going to put the screen mode. I'm going to put the mode on when it allows me to, on normal. And I'm going to pick a white, so I'm going to come down here and just put the hexadecimal code for white, which is FFF, and I'm just going to add a little bit of size increase. So as you can see, it's gone in there. Now what I might actually do is make this even darker, so I'm going to pick an even darker grey from up here. I'll watch I don't go too dark. That should be alright. Okay, and I'm going to save this back out. But also, before I do that, I'm just going to check my colours. So that's 183 RGB, and I'll save this as. And be doing there. Replace this. Okay, and I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to close it because I think this will do the job. So what I need to do now is just to come in here and just reload these things back in. Okay, and I'm also going to darken down, actually I'll leave the lit colour as it is. Maybe I'll darken it down a touch. Maybe take it into the blue a little bit, just so it's sort of echoing what's happening with the frame. Okay, I'm going to move out a little bit more now, get a more realistic view of it then, and I'm going to render that out. Okay, so it's rendered out, and that's a lot better. It's got this white. Remember, this is in direct light as well, so it's pulling in a lot of information from the lit and the spec colours, so that's why it's so bright, but when it turns it will sort of catch the light better. And yeah, so that's that section done. Now also I want to put this part in there as well, which I kind of forgot about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and save this first of all, and I'm going to add it to that map that we created for this. But I'm going to put it in an area where we haven't got anything, so it'll just take on that characteristic. You'll see what I mean when I do it. So what I want to go is edit and just take away the history. I'm going to go into create UVs and automatic mapping, which should have mapped that. So I'm going to go into my UV texture editor again, as per usual, and I'm going to select the UVs and reduce these right down. Use the W key and just move them off to the side. Now I'm going to shift select the other bits, and I'm going to bring this in to here. Okay, and now because it's in this space I can just apply that material to it. So I'll just right hand click on this, I'll press 3 on the keyboard, I'll open up my hyper shade, and I'm going to apply this colour to it there. But while I'm in here I'm also going to label that car material, which I forgot to do. So I'll just put Shimano in there, hit enter. Okay, so now that this front bit will be reflective of this. It will be the same colour, which is what we want. Okay, so I think we're nearly done. The only other bits we need to look at, I think, are going to be these kind of twist grips, which I think I want in a kind of lighter colour, maybe a lighter blend. So I'll just put this in here and call it twist grips, and I think I'll make it just a lighter grey for these. Again, you could texture edit, you could UV lay these out if you want to. And this area, I think I'm going to make another blin. I'm going to call this gear grip. Again, if you want to UV map these and put detailing onto them, that's good. And I'll give these a fair bit of specularity there. I'm just going to save this and delete the history. I think I'll do the same with this back one as well. I think that's in the chrome colour, so that's alright. Delete the history on this one. The history, okay. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of detailing on this. So what I think I'll do is break it apart a bit. I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard and I'm going to create UV. I'm going to do a cylinder UV map for this. So I've hit the cylinder and I just want to rotate this around 90 degrees and have a look at my UV texture editor while this is going on. That's not bad actually. Yeah, I think that's quite good. Okay, right, I'm going to select the faces here through, not these faces, or these faces. I just want these top ones here. And I'm going to do a projection, but on the Y, because we're coming down. So I'm going to create a planar projection on the Y for this area. Okay, it's not bad. But definitely needs straightening up. Okay, let me just select the UVs for this and scale them. And I'm just going to move them here. Right, so I've got these, I'm going to reduce these down and I might put a series of red marks on them, but it's actually this top section here, this face, that I want to cut out. So I'm going to grab that and I need to just split the UV. Okay, I'm going to map it, so I've just picked that and I'm not sure if I want that top one. I think just this one, I don't want to put too much detail into it. Okay, I'm just going to map that again. Select the UVs for this. Select the shell. I'm not going to worry about putting the checker on it. You can if you want, but it's very little detail going to go on this. Bring this down, bring him down here, and just bring this one in here. Not very good use of UV space, but who cares? Okay, so that's good. Alright, happy with that. Just going to move this slightly this way and take this, do a UV snapshot, overwrite that and come back into Photoshop. Now I'm going to open up my images again. So you see how easy it is to cut bits out to UV map individual pieces that you want to put some texture on. Pretty easy. So double click that to make it there. I'm going to come into the new, I'm going to pick a actually I'm going to start with a light colour and I will darken it down. I'm just going to go to my image, invert for the UVs, put it into multiply, it's colour burn, it does the same thing really. And I'm just going to go type in here down. I'm going to pick a pretty firm kind of font. I want to make it a red. Just pick the default red out of there. I'll just reduce this down a little bit. And we'll also then just add to this, and I'll just put up. I'll do. Okay, now I just want to add some little bits. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a little red dot in here. Create a new layer, deselect and duplicate this layer, use the move tool, move it across. Just going to get that text and just equalize it a little bit better. Now I'm just going to do a little line and put this, merge this layer down so that my dots are on a layer, and create a new layer and just drop this in here. I think I actually want a darker red than this, so I'm going to go into something like this, deselect, and what I'm going to do is put a kind of line in here. Then I'm going to duplicate this and put a kind of line through here, just to add a little bit of interest, and one through there. Okay, now I'm going to darken this back down. I don't want it black, I want it really dark grey, so I'm going to choose something like this and drop that in. And I'm just going to add a little bit of noise, not much, and then I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. I'm just going to blur it a little bit. Okay, that'll do. Alright, then I'm going to turn this layer off and I'm going to save it as gear grip, and save this as a JPEG again. Okay, then I'm going to save the original file just in case in my images folder. Click OK, close this down. I'm now going to select this, put it into 3 mode. I don't know what's going to happen here because of this funny grip, so I might have to harden this grip up, but we've already got the colour in there, so I'm going to go into this and select the colour, and we've got our gear grip there. Okay, so that looks pretty cool. You can see there's something going on. We've also got some lines running through here. Yeah, I like that. looks good. But of course my UVs are all over the place on this side, as you can see from the UV texture editor. So I need to delete this out and just to put this across. So I'm just going to select it, and I need to snap this to the middle. So I'm going to press the insert key, and then I'm going to press X and hold this and drag it to the middle and press the insert key again. Now I'm going to go to edit and duplicate special. Hold on. Duplicate special. X. I was right before. I think it's because of the translations are all off. Right, insert again. X, snap it to the middle. Insert again. I'm going to save this just in case anything bad goes on. Now I'm going to go to modify, freeze transformation, and now I'm going to duplicate special, and I've still got the problem with, God, drives me nuts. Because I need to come into duplicate special and put it back on the Z axis, which was correct the first time. And there it goes, shot across. I just needed to reset freeze transformation so that it zeroed out, so it wasn't doing any funny business. Okay, and that should now be correct, that side. So you might want to put a little red line on this little twist grip or not. It's so small, don't know if you're going to see it, but if you zoomed in this far, then maybe you would. Just do a quick render of this. Right, okay, when we get close up you can see it, there's miles too much reflection on these materials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this image so you can see, and I'm going to reduce the reflection on these. So where we've got reflectivity, I'm just going to bring that down. I'm going to take this, I'm going to bring this down, and this I'm going to bring right down as well. Now I'm going to do a re-render of this. Okay, so now as you can see, it's a lot better, we're a lot sharper. You might want to turn the diffuse up or down a little bit. You can see the difference there just by turning that reflection right down. There's got a bit of reflection but not too much. So that kind of brings us to the end of this course. Now, like I said before, I'm going to do a follow-on course on more of UV mapping and projecting UV maps, and also bump mapping and normal mapping. Now we've looked at bump mapping, but the general policy these days is to use normal maps because they're more accurate. There is a plugin, if you Google NVIDIA normal map plugin for Photoshop, and if you download that and install it, it's free. I think you can still get it. Then you can convert your bump map to a normal map using that plugin, and then you can just put that in normal. And so what you would do, instead of putting it as the bump, you would just come in and select the normal map, and then you would just make sure that instead of use as bump, you would use as tangent space normals, and that's the only difference. And it'll give you a more accurate bump, more accurate normal map bump. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to cover on actually using things like displacement maps and all these things, and we didn't need to use a projection for this bike, so I didn't bother with it. But I will be doing a course just on UV unwrapping and especially for games which use normal maps primarily, and also they do not use the soft preview which you've been using. because obviously, as we said before right at the beginning, is that when we use this soft preview here, it doesn't work in Maya software or most others. It works in Mental Ray, so we can't use that. So what we use instead is I've hardened the edges again here, is in models we'll actually go to the normals and we'll just click soften, and that will soften them up, but it doesn't give you as good a result as using the soft number 3 key, the soft mode for Mental Ray. So that's why we were using it for this. So I'm going to do another course now where it's rendering out this bike, and we're going to look at things like adding an HDRI map to it to create a kind of environment. We'll set it up as a turntable, and we'll show about rendering out the shadows and final gather and all these sort of things that will really improve the final image that we can render out in render passes and put it together in something like Photoshop, or if we do it as a rendered out sequence, we can take it into something like Adobe After Effects and comp it all together within that program. So this is, again, it's going on and on and on because there's so many things that you can do and tackle, and there's only so much time that I can get to spend on this. So that's why I'm sort of ending this at this stage now. But don't worry, I will be doing another course very shortly on the UV mapping side of things and the projecting details onto surfaces, as well as carrying on showing you more advanced techniques of doing mapping and stuff, because you can actually paint here in Maya, and we can use transfer maps to create those textures from those paints, and also we can do some modeling, detailed modeling, and create a simple object that we can then transfer the detailed object to the simple object and automatically create a bump map for it. So there's lots to look forward to, but this course is coming to an end, and I've got just this final course to do on the rendering and the light setup, which should be significantly quicker than this, although rendering time takes longer. And then we're finished on this job, and we can move on the next course that I will do after that course will be the UV mapping and going into a bit more detail with those sort of things. So that will be coming on the pipeline, but for now I think we've got quite a nice model, and it will look even better once you follow the rendering and lighting course that will be done next. So this is the end of the texturing and material part of the course for this polygon modelled bike. And if you want to know how to create this bike, again, like I said earlier at the beginning of the course, the bike is a 14-hour course, and it's £3, which I think is $5 or something. So if you buy that, then you'll see how this bike was all modelled. Okay, see you in the next course. Sorry, I just forgot, here's a render out of that final image of the bike at this stage. Okay.